Everyone still looks uncomfortable.
Perhaps they're all remembered that old saying, power corrupts.
Second Officer Slog. I'm your host, and with me is a regular host, Jackson.
Hello.
And we are here with episode 4 of everyone's favorite Star Trek book club. Have you been reading Star Trek books, Jackson?
I've read the one Star Trek book I was meant to read.
Well, that's all we ask, actually. So you've done it. You did the thing.
Yeah.
What have you been doing in the meantime? How's things going? Are you excited for Discovery?
Like in the abstract, yes, but I'm mostly just tired.
Okay. I think it's been since we recorded our last one that Discovery got an actual release date for September, right?
Yes, it's true. Should we, we'd like to cover the basic, like, what we're going to do in the first segment in case you're like, oh, I don't want to listen to this for spoilers.
Yeah, but first I wanted to talk a bit about our future plans for Discovery.
Oh, no, I was segueing into that, because, yeah, we have plans for what we're going to do. There's an actual Star Trek series airing this year. That's crazy.
Yeah. And we are going to cover it. Our plan is to do episodes the week. We'll do episodes about the episodes. That's dumb. But we'll do them the week they air, probably. Time permitting, of course. But we will do recaps and reactions to the new Star Trek. We will both be watching a new Star Trek as Star Trek fans, and it's going to be weird.
Yep. They will be in September, weekly bonus episodes, probably little shorter than real episodes, but I don't know how long. We would yell about them without the recording on for hours anyway, so we'll see how that ends up going, but yes.
Yeah, it'll be great. What if the show's bad? If the show's bad, then our episodes are going to be even longer, probably.
Oh, it depends what kind of bad.
That's true.
What if it's the return of pure Star Trek bad? Not this fake bad that we've had for a while.
Then the episodes will be the longest episodes we could possibly do.
It's true.
If they're like the Abrams verse, they'll be very short.
Yep.
The negotiations were short.
Right. We're not allowed to get it. We don't have time.
There's only one. We're only allowed one Star Wars reference an episode, and that's the one I took it.
You took it. Oh man. God damn it.
So, do you want to tell people what we're covering today, and I'll tell them what we're covering next month before we get into it?
Yes. This month is a different approach from what we've done recently. We've been doing the DS9 books, but today we are reading Imzadi by Peter David, which is a TNG prequel, sequel, tie-in book that deals with lots of time bullshit, but basically focuses on the relationship between Riker and Troy. The episodes we're doing are Haven, which is Season 1, Episode 11 of TNG, and Second Chances, which is Season 6, Episode 24 of TNG. So this episode that we're doing right now is meant to be more inclusive to people who haven't watched all of DS9, because those last episodes, full of spoilers. Do not listen to them if you haven't seen all the way through DS9. But this, just come in. We'll keep it light. We promise not to throw any DS9 spoilers in the discussion. We promise.
Yeah, we'll do our best.
We'll do our best. So yeah.
Now you said that, the urge to actually throw out a DS9 spoiler is really high, but I actually want people to listen to this, so I shouldn't.
Well, there are definitely things that I read in this book and was like, this relates to this other thing because DS9 is that good a show. But we'll be nice, and if you enjoy this, you should go watch DS9 and then carry on this journey to the future. But that's the basic plan.
This trek through the stars?
Fuck off. What are we doing next month?
Next month, for books, we are starting Mission Gamma, which is a 4-book series of the DS9 relaunch. So, if you want to get back into that, finish DS9 and listen to our prior episodes, because it'll be building off of those. The first book is called Twilight. It is by David R. George III. It is from 2002. What?
Sorry, is a Star Trek book written by an old king? Sorry, David, but I had to laugh at your name.
And I hope it's good, because there's 4 of them, and if this series is bad, then we're on the hook for 4 bad books, and let's hope that's not the case. Episodes, we are going to kind of focus, while we're doing while we're doing these Mission Gamma books, we're going to kind of focus on classic episodes of TOS because Jackson really hasn't watched much of it, and I haven't watched all of it, and I could use a refresher course. So we're doing the episodes Balance of Terror, which is season 1, episode 8, which is the introduction of the Romulans, and then we're doing classic episode Mirror Mirror, season 2, episode 10, which is the introduction of the Mirror Universe. Which I can't believe they didn't do a Mirror Universe TNG episode.
They didn't. Well, no, because it wasn't until bringing that back in DS9 was even like a thing anyone cared about.
I know, but because that happened and people care so much about the dumb... I mean, there's so many books about the Mirror Universe, and the Mirror Universe is such like an iconic image of like what Star Trek is that it just surprises me.
It is surprising, but also because it is what it is and knowing what I do about like the books that deal with it, it kind of sounds like all the TNG part of that sucks. Like Mirror Universe Picard just being buff as hell revolutionary.
So that's only in that comic series where we laugh at when we see it.
That is how he is.
So
I don't know how buff as hell he is in the actual thing, but he is totally hidden revolutionary.
To kick the football down the road a little bit,
yep.
If we ever get to the second trilogy of Shatnerverse novels, it deals with Mirror Universe, including TNG, and in that Picard is like half his face is scarred Klingon warrior, like he was raised by Klingons.
Oh, that's
and
so
he's got
much
like
better.
he's got long hair and like a ponytail like a Klingon does. But he's also probably bald, I guess. I don't know. I don't remember that part.
Oh, yes. God,
Yes.
We have to get to the Shatnerverse bullshit.
Yep.
Final bit of housekeeping hypothetical ideas that we're going to get to. In addition to the Discovery podcasts, we are going to be, at some point, no tentative date, these will happen randomly as and when, be doing shorter podcasts where we focus on comics rather than books. This came out of an evening of looking at panels from Star Trek comics and losing our goddamn minds. So we have to share that with you.
Yeah, those are on no normal schedule, so you can't really keep up with us. But when we do put them up, we will have image galleries of the panels that we laugh the hardest at, because Star Trek comics are ridiculous.
Yep.
Star Trek is good. Star Trek comics are good, but in opposite ways.
The first image I showed to you was of a comic that was a tie-in to TNG, clearly drawn before the show had started. So it was based off concept art, and it just has like the Enterprise phasing through Picard in like this really psychedelic looking image, and we knew we had to do this at some day. Yep. So these are the things.
These are the voyages.
Shut up. You can't do that every time. That's twice you've made that same basic joke.
Yeah, no, this is the Star Trek. If I can't do it now, when can I do it, Jackson?
You were just doing a negotiations are short joke. Don't come and tell me that you're like looking for appropriate times.
I can't turn that into a Star Trek episode, but I'm sure one exists. I just don't know it. Anyway, we're going to get into our episodes. Before that, if you want to help support us, you can go to patreon.com/abnormalmapping. And pledge to help support the show and all the other shows we do. We will plug all the shows at the end of the episode. But, in case you didn't want to listen to one part of this or another, that's where we're at. We'll be back next month with those. And after the musical break, we'll be back with our episodes. Our first episode this month is Haven, which is Season 1 of The Next Generation, Episode 11. It aired the 30th of November, 1987. I was a toddler. Teleplay is by Tracy Torme, story by Tracy Torme and Lana Kuhn, and directed by Richard Compton. This is an episode in which Troy receives a mysterious box with a creepy face on it, and that box dispenses gems. It is her dowry. It is time for her to get married to the guy that she has been betrothed to since she was a child. His name is Wyatt, and he comes on board and is like, you're not the woman I expected, because he has a weird psychic link to the idea of the woman he was supposed to be with, because he's been sketching her and she looks like an 80s lady, way more so than Deanna Troi does. And then Loxana comes on board and hijinks ensue, and there's a story about a virus, but who cares? Jackson, this is Season 1 of TNG is a bad show. This is maybe one of the worst episodes of Season 1 of TNG.
This episode is intolerable. I was watching it, and it begins with Facebox, which is maybe the most Doctor Who bullshit I've ever seen in Star Trek.
Facebox, for the record, played by Armin Shimmerman.
Is that where Armin Shimmerman begins?
Yep.
Oh,
you know what? He might have played. He played a Ferengi in The Last Outpost first.
Oh, was that? I don't know where the orders go. I know he was.
Yeah, unless this was filmed beforehand. Yeah. Oh, looking at Memory Alpha, actually,
yes,
Haven was filmed before The Last Outpost. So yes, this is his beginning in Star Trek.
The 4th produced episode of TNG.
And then they sat on it because they knew what they had.
They knew they had to bump up Space Africans.
Need the space. I mean, if TNG Season 1 aired today, it would have been canceled 5 episodes in.
Yeah. Watching early TNG and seeing the amount it was allowed to just be shit and figure out how to one day not be shit is that kind of slack is not given to TV anymore. I don't know. Is that true? Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is still on.
Look, let's not take shots at shows we don't even watch. So, this is the introduction, maybe the most important part of this episode. This is the introduction of Loxana Troi and Mr. Holm, who are the best recurring characters on TNG, I feel like.
They're so ridiculous.
Loxana Troi, of course, played by Majel Barrett Roddenberry, who is amazing in everything she does. I really love Loxana. I think she's a great introduction. I feel like she's played really broad in this episode because she's basically like a tantrum-throwing toddler through the entirety of the show.
Yeah.
The amazing scene where she and Wyatt's parents are in the pre-wedding banquet, and she's just fucking with those old people because they're stuck up, and she's Loxana Troi, is kind of infuriating, but also I feel like I mostly side with Loxana and most everything in this show, except for the part where this arranged marriage is clearly a bad idea.
Yeah, well, this episode's weird because you're meant to find Loxana ridiculous, and she is ridiculous. She's asking Captain Picard to carry her bags, but also then you get to watch Captain Picard picking up bags and running down the corridor.
Yep,
and that's pretty good.
Yeah. They've introduced Deanna as her empathic abilities, and she always tells people exactly what people watching the show and paying attention were feeling in every episode. But Loxana is our first introduction to an actual Betazoid and one who's really good at reading minds and stuff. And so introducing her as this person who constantly makes people uncomfortable by being frank and lampooning their most held traits by turning the very severe, especially in Season 1, Captain Picard into a glorified bellhop is, I think, one of the better characterizations of what Loxana represents on the show. The reason she works is that she takes everyone's self-seriousness, and TNG is very self-serious, down a peg, and it's always a relief to me.
Yeah, for sure. But it also results in just some fantastic gesture acting when the voice is coming in on a voiceover, and then Laxmana is acting out she's saying the lines with her arms, and the voice is coming into Troy's head, and you're oh, this is so good. They had no idea what this was. They're just going for it. Thank God.
Yeah, no, the telepathic speech in TNG has always been incredibly badly done, I feel like.
Yeah.
It's like I get in theory why you think it's a good idea when you write it into a script, but making people try to act it is terrible. It's terrible.
It's crazy. And then as the episode goes along, the other the things that come up are like Riker's jealous because it's season 1 Riker, and he's jealous of this guy. The episode starts and you think, oh, I know exactly where this plot's going. It's going to be about Troy standing up to her mother and not marrying this guy. That's obviously how this goes, but that's not what happens at all. She's like, actually, I'm 100% going to marry this guy. I think it sucks, but I have to do it because that's tradition. And then through ridiculous coincidence, he runs into the girl he'd been drawing because they are transmitting, they're on a ship with a plague on it, and he beams over there because he's like, it's my destiny to cure this plague and be with this woman.
Yep. I guess the actual plot is they're going to the planet that they're around. Is that this planet called Haven? I think
it's called Haven.
Yes, and that planet's supposed to have restorative properties, and this plague ship shows up, and the lady contacts Picard and is like, you have to blow that ship out of the sky. And then they talk to the ship, and the ship is like, no, we actually came here to find Wyatt because in one of maybe the worst things until Beverly Crusher Fuck Ghost, it is implied that this 80s lady and Wyatt have a magical connection, their collective unconsciousness linked up, and that's why they're having visions of each other and drawing each other, because love knows no bounds and will cross the universe to link you with your chosen one.
It's amazing.
No, it's garbage.
It's fucking because you're like, okay, what is this? What kind of Star Trek bullshit is happening here? And then Luxwana sits Wyatt down and is like, the truth is much more simple than even humans realize. They're too concerned. You're just connected with each other. And I'm like, fuck off, boo, boo.
Everyone's like, oh, this is very unusual. And Luxwana's like, no, it's just love magic. And it just turns out to be love magic.
And also, I think it's key to say that the way this guy plays everything, he just comes across as the creepiest guy.
Wyatt is 20 or 25 years too early the softest soft boy that has ever softed.
None more soft, none more boy. Just walking around like, oh yeah, I know it's actually bad to draw, to draw pictures of a woman you only know and then be disappointed. It's not, I can't put that on you. That's so unfair. I'm so sorry.
But also he's a doctor, and so when he meets Deanna and they talk in private, they're getting to know each other, and she's like, well, I'm a practicing psychologist. He's like, oh, I'm a doctor. We could team up. We could have a shared practice. And it's the most 80s version of supportive husband, and it's just the most cringe-inducing bullshit.
Because he's totally written to be like, oh, you're not meant to hate him because you think you're going to hate him, and you're just meant to find him nice.
But because of that, and because this episode is 30 years old, he is detestable.
He is, just an awful person.
And not through any fault of his own. It's just 80s men were bad.
And then he beams off this other ship, and then his parents are like, he's gone to a plague ship. You let him go to a plague ship. We came here to get him married, and now we lost him to the plague.
He can make his own choices. He's an adult.
Yep. And he just on the view screen Mother, I had to do this. It was love magic, you see.
Actually, so one of the things that's one of the reasons why it's always been kind of a big doofus to me is because he's introduced with his parents, he just always seems kind of an awkward teenager.
Yep.
Even though he's clearly the same age as Deanna. And I think it's interesting because one of the things that happens to Deanna in this episode, but also any episode of Luxwana is we see Deanna is a member of the crew and is also a professional. But the minute you throw her mom on the ship, you remember that Deanna Troi and everyone on the ship that isn't Picard is probably in their 20s, and they feel very young.
Yeah. Which is partly just a thing that is true of when you meet someone at work's parents as well.
Yes.
But it's also a side effect of the writing and how they deal with this relationship. Everyone's too young. I don't like it. They should get older. But not too old.
Not too old. We don't want to sail into insurrection.
No.
Just yet. We have a ways to go.
A ways to go, yeah.
One of my favorite actual things that happens in this, by the way, is Picard, who is basically the butt of every joke in this episode, then gets to exercise his one moment of agency where he, in the middle of like the disastrous like dinner, or it's not the dinner scene, but it's like before that they're just having like a little cocktail soiree. He's like, I am the captain and I've decided that all disagreements are resolved, and so be it, and so it shall be.
It is the most referencing another podcast here, but it is like just a cartoon friends at the table rolling to just resolve a conflict through bullshit that I've ever seen on Star Trek. He just goes, yes, actually, according to me, you can't be arguing anymore because this is a social gathering and I've decided it, everything's fine. And then everyone laughs like, everything is fine.
Yep.
It's ridiculous.
This is a bad episode. You can find fun in laughing at it more than it being funny. Picard is good in it, though. It does have the one unredeemable thing about like 2 season 1 Trek episodes, and that is that Deanna calls William Riker Bill.
I hate it so much. I hate it. You can tell in my voice. I hate it. .gif. I hate it.
Bill Riker. Billy Rikes.
Billy and Riker. No.
Yep.
No.
The problem with that is that it just, and I mean, you know, it's like, it's because of Shatner. Like, it just makes it seem like the 60s thing that's ever happened to call William T. Riker Bill.
It's not good.
Nobody under the age of 40 named Bill exists. That's my feeling.
Yeah. If you're young called Bill, then fuck you.
Yep. No, change it to Will. Change it to Will or William. No one's called Bill anymore.
I'm changing it to Willard. You can't stop me.
That's fine. I'll take Willard over Bill.
Yeah, it's not. It's unforgivable. It's not okay. It happened.
And that's kind of all that Haven deserves to be talked about. I feel like
the one hilarious, like clearly intentional hilarious moment. It comes at that dinner scene where everything's kicking off. Everyone's arguing. They're like, "Oh, naked Betazoid wedding," blah, 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 because that's introduced in this episode. It's where that comes from because it's a cartoon.
Yep.
And Troy just like this whole dinner. Mr. Hom has been like banging a gong.
Yeah, that's what he does.
That's what he does to say thank you for the food. Every time he eats a bit of food, he bangs the gong, and everyone's been ignoring it. And you're like waiting for someone to snap, but instead it's Troy who snaps at her mother for being annoying. And she just like yells at everyone. It's like, "You all suck, especially you, Mum," and just storms out. But as she walks past, Mr. Hom like bangs the gong, and as she is walking past immediately after, she smacks the gong off the table, and it makes the same sound effect. And I died laughing. It was so funny.
Yep. It's good. Star Trek characters throwing tantrums is great because Star Trek characters are inherently lampoonable when they are not being self-serious.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the thing I come back to on TNG. The characters are so like official and buttoned up that whenever they violate that, it's great.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
So our next episode, Jackson, would you like to introduce it?
So we are taking a journey to the other side of TNG for episode 24 of season 6, Second Chances, with a story by Michael Medlock and teleplay by Renee Echevarria, directed by LeVar Burton. It aired on the 24th of May, 1993. I did not exist.
I did.
You did.
I did. What is this episode about, Jackson?
This episode, I'm just going to read the Memory Alpha description. We should have read one for Haven because the Haven one was hilarious, but I'm just going to read the description. It says, "The Enterprise finds a second Will Riker on a planet that he helped evacuate 8 years ago." So what happens is they pull in, they're like, "Oh, we have to retreat. 8 years ago, I was on the station. There was a huge thing. We were trying to like retrieve this data, and as we were beaming out, there was like, we got caught in a distortion field and we could never go back. But now, 8 years later, the sun is in such a position, technobabble, that we have got a chance to go back and recover this data." So the Enterprise goes, and Riker and Data and Worf beam down, and then they're standing there, and then who walks in but another Will Riker, who was of course created as like, he was trying to transport away, and Will Riker got away, but this other Riker stayed behind. The transporter created a copy.
So let me explain the exact mechanics of how
okay, are we going to go into this now?
The reason that they can't beam down is because there's like this very thick cloud around the planet that only it only has gaps in it when it like nears the planet in its orbit, because it has like an irregular orbit. So when they were beaming Will Riker up, it was right as this window was closing, and they go to beam him up and they're having trouble. So they use a second containment beam in the transporter. Like they basically start a second transporter to like duplicate the beam and strengthen it. And that works, and they bring Riker up. And so they shut down both beams, but the second beam reflects off of the cloud cover that is now like blocking the spot where the beam was, and beam like as it reflects the pattern back to the pad, it rematerializes Lieutenant Riker on the planet where he was as the window's closing. So they have Riker that they beamed up. Riker is on the planet from the reflection. They are both Will Riker down to the atom. Will Riker is suddenly two people because the transporter is magic.
There's a couple of episodes like this where a transporter thing will like lead into like a duplicate, and in those episodes it becomes abundantly clear that the transporter, you are dead every time you use it. Every time you use the transporter, it's a new person. Like sometimes Star Trek isn't clear about that and just hand waves it because you can't actually deal with that. But in an episode like this, it's not about that sensation, but it does just admit it to be 100% true.
Yeah, it just takes you apart atom by atom and reconstructs you, because that's just a thing that can happen in like seconds, and just a thing everyone does every day.
Yep. And they're like, oh, great, you are two people now. And so the actual plot of the episode revolves around how the like two Rikers deal with being like how they relate to each other, and also how they relate to Troy. It's a very character-centric episode. There is a vague B-plot drama as ever there is. This episode is getting that data out of that planet. But it is mostly character work for the whole episode. And it's really good. It's such a good episode.
The basic premise is Will Riker at this point, like when he was going to leave this planet, his goal was to meet with Deanna Troi on, was it Risa or was it just somewhere else?
Risa. It was Risa.
Okay. He was supposed to meet Deanna Troi, who they were in a relationship, but it was kind of long distance and on again, off again. It's implied. And they were going to meet on Risa, and the implication that Riker beamed down, let's call him Riker Yellow. He's going to get a name at the end of the episode. Let's call him Riker Yellow.
Oh, can we not just do the name now? Get over
No,
with.
let's call him Riker Yellow. That's funnier.
So Riker Yellow.
Riker Yellow and Riker Red. So Riker Yellow was going to meet Deanna, and his implication was that he was like going to meet her and like be like, let's take this more seriously. Let's like actually get married. Let's do this. Let's do this for real. And this opinion has only been strengthened by being stranded alone on a Federation outpost for 8 years with no one around, and it's slowly like falling apart around him. So he is just like desperate castaway Tom Hanks volleyball in love with the idea of Deanna Troi at this point. Meanwhile, Riker Red got beamed up, and because he was so successful in getting everyone off of that outpost, he like got fast tracked to a promotion, and then he didn't meet Deanna on Risa, and that's how they started to really drift apart, because he focused on his career because he was advancing faster, and he was like, oh, I'm gonna just be good at being Starfleet. And that connection never happened, and that's how they drifted apart. And that's why when she showed up on the Enterprise years later, he's like, oh, Deanna. And then she's like, oh, Will. And then they Bill. Sorry, season 1. And they have that interaction that's very awkward and encounter at Farpoint. And then their relationship is just kind of weird on and off, like flirtation with maybe getting back together, but never actually doing it for all of TNG. Which makes it really complicated when like her and Riker are like best of friends. And then Riker Yellow shows up, and suddenly he is like entirely in love with her. And because she's like empathic, and because her and Riker have this incredible bond, and because she still like loves him and they love each other, she feels the same way towards him. Like once she separates the two as like people, she's like, oh, this is like the Riker I left, and those feelings are still there, and that's really complicated.
Yeah. And so it's just these two people or three people dealing with this like fucking nonsense sci-fi situation, but mostly just having to like deal with it by talking to everyone at length about how they feel. So it's the most Star Trek possible. It's so good.
It is a great episode. This is some of my favorite Riker Troi interactions in all of TNG. Like there's actually a lot of good scenes between them. But like the episode opens with Riker in his like alien jazz band where he's like the one human and he's playing trombone, and he's like, what, take requests. And Deanna is like drinking with Beverly Crusher, and she shouts the one song that she knows he can't play at him. And he just gives her like this most withering look as like he knows and she knows, and they're like she's having a great time just like fucking owning him for being a doofus, and it's so good.
And he's like
two's
about
friendship.
He's like about to play the song, and then immediately gets like a Riker to the bridge, please. And just gives her a look like, ha ha, hoisted, goodbye. It is like the way they can just portray their like friendship, you're saying, just in these little scenes is so good and detailed, and just the like acting. There's a lot of very good acting in this episode. Everyone knows how to act for Star Trek.
Yeah, there's also like post Deanna getting a uniform and being a much better written character. So you have like the scene where when she's like conflicted about her feelings for Riker Yellow, she's like doing Klingon calisthenics with Crusher in the like gym room, which is always the most dated of looks. You remember the show as 93 when they're in these like entirely terry cloth gis doing
it's stunning
fake Tai Chi and talking about boys, which is what they are doing. Unfortunately, and it's a shame because I like both characters, whenever Troy and Crusher are having a conversation, it is always about boys. Every single time.
Yep. It's a shame because I enjoy their boy conversations. Like the bit where Crusher just like sees Riker coming and is like, oh, guess I have to leave now to do other things. Goodbye. And then Troy's just like, Beverly, where are you going?
The best part is Riker Yellow meanders in like also in a terry cloth gi and just starts doing like the like dumbest like I don't actually exercise but I'm gonna try to look cool stretches.
Yep.
And he just comes across as like this posturing like jock dickhead, but like a well-meaning one. And then like Deanna is doing her Klingon calisthenics and Riker is he's like, oh, that looks like Tai Chi. And so he's doing Tai Chi moves that reflect these Klingon ones back at her. So they're doing them together. And it is both hilarious and like, I think it's really interesting to see Deanna as like, she's like a much different person than Riker Yellow knew when he like left her and was going to meet her back on Risa. Like she's been through a lot of shit. She's had a career. She's like a person with a lot of complexity that the show didn't give her to start with.
Yeah.
And I really like that interaction where she is clearly the one who can get the best of Riker Yellow. Like she is the one in control in that relationship.
Completely. Which also that scene features a 360 tracking shot of the Tai Chi battle in complete silence.
Look, sometimes Next Generation makes the arty choices and they're the best ones.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, LeVar Burton,
for
making that shot.
Mwah.
Well, we mentioned this is directed by LeVar Burton. This is actually his first directorial debut. He will go on to direct a bunch of stuff, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I think
like
it's
everyone else.
I think it's only one more in TNG, but he is definitely like him and Frakes. I know are the two people who constantly come back to all the other shows to direct.
Oh yeah, I mean like Frakes is like literally just a director these days, so he directed everything.
Yep.
And because that there isn't actually that much in terms of like Geordi stuff in this episode, but we'd be remiss to not mention the amazing Data Worf scene in this show.
The amazing Data Worf scene. So one of the things that's really, really good about this episode, which I haven't rewatched enough season 6 TNG to know if it's like just across the board or if this is particularly good. I'm going to assume a bit of both. There are just so many amazing tiny like blink if you miss it character beats that the actors get to do.
There's a lot of that in this season. Season, like season 5 is when that really hits its stride, and then 6 is a lot of that.
So there's like a scene where Riker and Picard are talking, and Riker Red and Picard are talking, and Riker Red like walks out clearly distressed, and Picard's giving him advice about what he thinks is best, and it just holds a shot on Picard for like 2 seconds of Picard like looking like a sad dad, wanting to do the right thing, but knowing he can't like actually overstep his bounds, because TNG is ultimately always a show about navigating relationship boundaries. And this scene with Worf and Data comes right at the end when Riker Red and Riker Yellow go off to do the mission together and confront their like resentment towards each other. And it happens by it's standing there and Data goes, why is it that humans do not like doubles? Is it because they do not like they don't like being reminded that they're not possibly unique in the universe, and then Worf goes, well, I'm not very nice to get along with sometimes, and then Data just makes a face like, yes, of course. And it's like, and it doesn't stop the conversation, and they're like, oh no, I think what we're seeing here is like having to look at yourself and the parts you don't like, and like the theme of the episode is carries on in the scene, but the moment is that like Brent Spiner going, yes, of course, you're not very likable, are you, Worf? And it's fucking hilarious. It is what you get.
Worf's not easy to get on with. He's likable, but he's a difficult person to know.
That's the line. Sorry, I messed up the line. But it's such a good line and such a good bit. And it's what you get when you have like a show that runs for this long that just super understands why the characters are who they are.
Yep. There's a really good interaction that I keep going back to in 10 Forward between Riker Red and Troy, where like her and Riker Yellow have like hooked up because their Tai Chi battle ends with them kissing on the floor of the gym. And she meets him in Riker Red in 10 Forward, and she sits down and she's like trying to figure out how to talk about what's going on, even though Riker Red knows that there's stuff going on, and like whatever. Like the conversation ends up in like a really good place where they're fine with it, but she stops and pauses and like is about to speak and doesn't know how to talk about the fact that she's fucking time displaced clone Riker, basically. And it's so good and like honest about sometimes Star Trek is unfathomable, but everyone rolls with it because they all live in this universe where this stuff happens all the time. And then Riker like basically like takes a long breath and like looks exasperated and then is like, yeah, it's complicated, but you're happy with him and I'm happy for you. And because he looks like me and I kind of don't get on with him doesn't mean that I don't want that for you. And it's just like they are the best friends and I love all their interactions. It's so good.
It's so good. And then there's also a scene where both Rikers play poker with each other.
Yeah, because Riker Yellow crashes the poker game. Tonight it is just Worf, Data, and Riker Red.
And because obviously the poker game is just going to be Riker versus Riker, it's like 5-card draw, and then they all draw, and like Riker draws 3, like Riker Yellow draws 3, and Riker Red draws none because he's got a good hand, and then Worf draws like 4, and everyone looks at him, and then he immediately gets given the 4, and it's like, I fold.
So two things. One, because the poker scenes are always used for exposition for characters that are like conflicted about something and don't know how to talk about it, and Worf is not that character. In any poker scene that is a protracted character metaphor, Worf immediately folds. So the like implied fact of the universe is that Worf is just really bad at poker, but is there every time anyway, which is very pure and good.
Not even that he's bad, but just like he is bad, but also just is actually handed terrible hands every time.
Sure. But like maybe also it just doesn't know how to deal with that, because the other thing, like Riker doesn't take any cards, Riker Red. It is, to me, it is implied, as it is always implied, that Riker Red is bluffing, because I feel like Riker Red will always bluff on anything. It doesn't matter what hand he has. That is just the person he is.
Mm-hmm. I was waiting for it to get to that point, and you see Riker Red was bluffing, and they're like, "Oh, we're not that different people." But it just ends with like Riker Yellow hitting this, because they bet big, and they like start betting on each other.
They're both like. If Riker Red is bluffing, we don't actually see his hand, but they are in a betting war with each other, and it is clear because Riker Yellow is like flop sweating almost that he is bluffing for sure, and Riker Red's like, I know all your tells, you're bluffing, because he is confident in a way Riker Yellow is not, and they just keep like, it's just his brinksmanship until Riker Yellow folds as like the less experienced Riker, and it's so good at showing why Riker Red is like neither Riker is bad, but because Riker Red has had so much more life experience, he is just like overbearing in a way that Riker Yellow cannot handle.
Yeah, it's like if it's like this like really quiet, sad moment, because I'm glad it doesn't like play up Riker Yellow's anger at the other Riker, but it's like, this is what happens if you're in a really bad place and then you meet like a version of you that like had a great life and was able to work through all their issues and is super like in control, and you're like, oh, I don't get to be that, but I have to like see that, and that's like the moment he knows that if I'm going to be a person, I cannot be like confronted with this perfect, well, not perfect, but like version of me that I want to become, but I don't want to emulate. So he like,
yeah, it's no, I think it's even, I think it's even more profound than that, where like he, like Riker Yellow thinks of himself before the Enterprise shows up as actually like carrying on really well in the face of everything horrible that's happened to him. Like he's survived, he's fixed the station multiple times, he set his own arm when it broke, like he was getting by, and he gets picked up and suddenly like Deanna's there, and that's amazing, and he's free again and his life can carry on. And I feel like he feels really great until he's confronted with the fact of Riker Red's like greatness surpassed him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's no way he can chase the man who had 8 years of being awesome on top of him, even if he's still awesome. Like, Riker Yellow is as awesome as Riker Red, but you can't catch those 8 years. Like, they're just gone.
Yeah, and it's not even like... he is... When he interacts with Riker Red, that he's, like... jealous that he's been able to do so much more than him. It's like a greater divide than that. He like sees that the kind of greatness that he wants is such a different person to what the actual Riker has become, and he sees how much better like the real Riker is than the imaginary good version of himself in his head, and just knows that he has to go and live his own life and be on DS9. He doesn't know that by the end of the episode, but it's really good. And then you get the final scene where there's clearly, I'm fairly sure there's a cut scene, which I wish I could see, where Picard and Riker Yellow talk. Because he comes in and is like, oh, Picard's got me a promotion somewhere else. He's came in and found a kind of solution where I can start my career again away from this and define myself as a person, and realizes that he's not going to be able to see Troy if he makes that decision, if he goes there. And he doesn't even like want to now, because he's like, it can't really break this bond between Riker Red and Troy. And so he just kind of walks out, taps Riker on the shoulder and is like, please take care of her, please do well. And then there's just about 45 seconds of silence as Riker and Troy stand there together, don't really know what to do, and then just hold hands like friends and walk out, because I guess we carry on. And it's so fucking good.
Yep.
This is when he takes his name, by the way.
Yes, which is Tom Riker after his middle name Thomas, which hilariously, like a lot of things we'll talk about, conflicts with facts presented in the book we're about to read, in which it is stated that the T in Riker stands for Thelonious.
Because of this, and because of how I watched TNG, the idea that this was a reveal is like, no, his middle name's Thomas. What are you talking about? Hang on. Well, how is he Thelonious? Is that a different version of Thomas in space? I don't fucking know.
No, Thelonious Monk, the jazz player. That's why you pick that for your book that you wrote. That's what the T stands for.
We'll get to that book in a minute.
So a couple things that are worth talking about in this episode that are not part of this. One, there is a cameo by Dr. Mae Jemison in this episode, which she is the first black astronaut, and she plays like a lieutenant or whatever named Palmer. And she's just in the show, and it's great to see her. If you know anything about history in her, you will spot her instantly, because she looks like a person who belongs in space in a way most of the extras in TNG do not.
It's so true. There's amazing, like really cute behind-the-scenes shots of like everyone coming to meet her on set. It's great.
Yep. Yeah, because like Nichelle Nichols came on set to meet her, which is amazing. Another thing worth pointing out, if you like compare this episode, because one of the things that's easy to forget about this episode, because it's a genuinely good episode, is this is like a technology gimmick episode, because it's about all of the mirror shots. And if you compare it to like Data Lore in season 1, the like quality of Riker interacting with Riker in this episode is amazing.
It's
like,
really seamless.
There's only one shot that I think is like kind of hinky, where they're arguing with each other in engineering, and I feel like every other shot is exceptional to the point where you kind of forget that it is one actor interacting with himself.
Because it's all mostly like there's super good like blocking in scenes where they're like, okay, this Riker's going to go under the table and be fixing stuff, while the other Riker's atop the table. So the way the shot is framed, you see one person's legs and the other person's head every time. Like they're really smart about getting around it, and then when they do like pick their moments to have the like shots where they've used doubles and stuff, it meshes really well. Yeah,
but because they mostly shoot it as two characters in a scene and not a special effects shot, like I think of like when Riker brings Tom the trombone at the very end of the episode, like it's just the way you would shoot two characters like exchanging a gift. and it doesn't read as like, this is our flashy special effects shot, and I love that about it.
Yeah, I'd basically like I was looking out for the seams and other shots, but by the end it was just an episode, and I didn't like think, oh, that's the same person, even though I know that. Like, you just watched the scene. It's really good.
And then, Jackson, please tell us the most amazing trivia about this episode.
So, there exists an alternate universe in our own where different decisions were creatively made. I'm just going to read this little quote from Memory Alpha here. In the early stages of writing the episode, the production team briefly considered killing off Will Riker and having Thomas join the USS Enterprise D's crew as his replacement.
Replacement, by the way, is in quotation marks.
But here's why, because the second sentence is almost crazier. Tom Riker would have replaced Data at operations, and Data would have been promoted to first officer. What?
That actually, like, so I think having Tom Riker be Riker's replacement is like bad, and it would just led to a bunch of really awful Riker Troy episodes. I feel like having Data first officer of the Enterprise sounds amazing.
Yep. Don't worry, later they'll get like the budget and time to do huge stories with Data in movies. It'll be really good.
Yeah, no, sure. I'm sure it'll be great. I'm sure we'll love every second of it. The actual bullet that they've dodged, or the path that was taken instead, is we get Troy Worf, because Troy Worf wouldn't have happened if Thomas Riker stayed around.
What if it still did?
And oh god, nope, don't want to think about that. That's going to be the worst. Troy Worf is my favorite thing late TNG does. It's so good.
How does the episode with the one before All Good Things with like Riker in the blown up ship in the future go with Thomas Riker? So many different paths.
I mean, in that episode, he would just be Riker Red, like Will Riker, right?
I guess so. I guess.
Yeah.
Oh, what a ridiculous thing.
But that means in the like 10,000 Enterprises that show up in that episode, one of them is Tom Riker at the helm.
Fuck! Why didn't they do that? God damn it! Oh, TNG is such a good show. Yeah. I know we've talked for ages about this episode, but it's that good. It's good. This is us just enjoying the good Star Trek. This month we are doing Imzadi for our book, written by Peter David and released in 1st of August 1992. This book deals with Riker and Troy's relationship and time nonsense. I was gonna give the hook, the hook of the book. I can read the blurb if you want. I've got the blurb here on Memory Alpha. I'm gonna do that.
Yeah, okay.
And I think that sets up things. We should make that a thing. Years before they served together on board the USS Enterprise D, Commander William T. Riker and the ship's counselor Deanna Troi had a tempestuous love affair on her home planet of Beta Z. Now their passions have cooled, and they serve together as friends. Yet the memories of that time linger, and Riker and Troy remain Imzadi, a powerful Betazoid term that describes the enduring bond they still share. During delicate negotiations with an aggressive race called the Sindarine, Deanna Troi mysteriously falls ill and dies. But her death is only the beginning of an adventure for Commander Riker. An adventure that will take him across time, pit him against one of his closest friends. Yep. And force him to choose between Starfleet's strictest rule and the one he calls Imzadi.
Oh, the Temporal Prime Directive. Starfleet's strictest rule.
The Time Prime Directive. Oh, what nonsense. I also want to describe the cover briefly.
Okay, go ahead, because it's every Star Trek book we're ever going to read, Jackson.
No, all Star Trek books have the same format, apparently, in this era, which is 3 heads and then a background of some description. And the background's just, it's a picture of the Guardian of Forever from the episode City on the Edge of Forever at the top, and then just space background. And then at the front, we have Troy in her old Troy uniform.
The one she wears for the majority of the show, the purple outfit.
Yes. And, standing there. And then on either side of her, looking like their heads are sprouting out of her shoulders, there is young baby Riker, looking like young baby Riker, and old Admiral Riker, who looks pretty much like he does in All Good Things. It's ridiculous.
But also, that cover was drawn before All Good Things was a real thing.
It really was.
Yeah.
This book's a lot.
So, in the summary, you said there is the line about her death is only the beginning of the adventure for Commander Riker, which is maybe the truest statement you could make about this book, damning it with its own words.
Yeah, the book actually begins with a foreword to George Roddenberry. Fucking hell, Jackson. I'm tired. The book actually begins with a foreword to Gene Roddenberry, where Peter David is like, I pitched this to him, and it was the last one he personally agreed. A book exploring the relationship of Troy and Will Riker, and I'm going to bring that to you now, and I hope he would enjoy it. And here's what it is. And then, a few 100 pages in, she's dead. And the entire book is about the time-spanning conflict that comes with that. It's nonsense.
So, let's get into the actual summary, which I will help with. The book opens with Commodore Data, captain of the Enterprise F, on the world of, or I guess they call it Forever World, but on the world where the Guardian of Forever, he is watching the ending of City on the Edge of Forever because Data has nothing better to do than watch old Star Trek episodes, I guess.
It's not.
And then he is reflecting on that incident with Edith Keeler that we covered in episode 1 of this podcast.
Yes, episode 1.
And with Mary Mack, who is the scientist in charge of Forever World. She is an Orion woman, and the book immediately takes a turn into Skeesville by going out of its way to describe how Mary Mack, as an Orion woman, is actually super hot, but has to try very hard to not look hot, so men will take her seriously, as the book is fucking oogling her for days. It is the fucking worst, Jackson.
It's like the 6 paragraphs in, this segment begins. It's the first major section of the book.
Let me get my notes, because I've highlighted a lot of things. Oh, also, early on, Data says an incredibly stupid thing that's not true, where his programming makes it impossible for him to violate Starfleet regulations, which is important for the end of the book, but please remember it's not a thing Data has ever done in his entire life, but it has to be true for this book, for reasons that will be revealed at the end.
It's not good.
Anyway, here is a thing about Mary Mack. Mary Mack was extremely peculiar. For one thing, she was an Orion. This in itself was not particularly unusual. She was, however, fully clothed. This was unusual, as the vast majority of Orion women existed purely to be the sex toys of men in general, and Orion men in particular. They were known as vicious and deadly fighters, and radiated sex the way suns radiated heat. And indeed, some thought, a bit more intensely.
Oh, it's the best part about this is that, so you read that and you're like, well, that was dumb. Is this going to stop now? No, you turn the page and it's like, she wore loose fitting.
No. So I highlighted a 1 paragraph, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 paragraphs of further description about Mary Mac being super hot but trying to look frumpy, so she wears glasses, which are horribly out of style.
Yeah, we're just going to do a couple. We're just going to trade off and give you a couple here, which she wore loose-fitting clothes, deliberately loosed, so as to do nothing that could potentially emphasize the formidable curves of her body. Yeah. Like, what the fuck?
Most incredibly, she wore glasses. They had a slight tint and huge frames. Nobody wore glasses. They were considered to be phenomenally out of date as well as unattractive, which is why she wore them.
Oh, it's so good. I hate it. I hate everything that is happening right here. It hurts. It hurts me.
Please. Okay, so her look had gotten her quite far. It had, in fact, been something of a plus. People would be interested and amused by her as she would discuss some involved or arcane bit of scientific lore. Interested because usually they'd never heard an Orion woman put together a sentence of more than 5 or so words. And amused because they'd smugly be waiting for her to revert to type at any moment. She never did, of course. It is the worst.
It's so much. It's a lot. So
anyway, they're talking.
Ends
So they're talking about the Guardian, and they're like Mary Mac's like, oh, we've made very interesting observations, and her and Data have a conversation about it. And the thing with the Guardian is that they put this giant super fuck off shield around it, so no one can like get in and mess with the time stream. But they have to lower it to talk to the Guardian, which they do like under observation, because the Guardian won't talk through the shield, but they need to talk to it to like, get it to show stuff and figure out what it's about. So they're using it to like talk about the nature of time and universes, and Mary Mac floats the idea of alternate universes over dinner. She's like, oh, we've noticed like there's deviations in the timeline at these focal points which are strange and might lead to parallel universes. And Data's like, oh, that reminds me of this time me and Tasha Yar fucked, and then she died, and then in another universe she was alive, and then she went back in time and became the mother of like a Romulan lady. Just casually, like Data does, he has no shame about the time him and Tasha Yar fucked while they were space drunk.
He's fully functional.
He's fully functional. It's bad. Meanwhile, in that universe, Admiral William T. Riker is in charge of Starbase 86. And the book goes out of its way to point out that 86 is the police code for, like, death. Is, like, been 86'd. And that's just a thing that's continued into Star Trek. And he is at this rundown, dead-end starbase. His career a shambles, him a shambles, with this, like, super flighty, overly concerned, passive-aggressive lieutenant that's like, blah, 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 you need to take care of yourself, Admiral. And he gets a call that he's been summoned to Beta Z because she wants to talk to him. She, in this instance, being Loxana Troy, who is dying and needs to see Riker at her last breath. So Starfleet sends a ship commanded by Captain Wesley Crusher, who, because this book was written in 93, just continued being in Starfleet, became a captain. It is described that he has a Van Dyke beard and is going gray at the temples. He is divorced and has children. He is basically Will Wheaton in 2017, but as a Starfleet captain, and I've never hated Star Trek more than in the moment of realizing that.
He is twice married, thrice childed. It's hell. It's so bad. I'm so glad they end TNG by, like, putting Riker down, by putting Crusher down a different, like, route for where he could go with the Traveler stuff, because the idea of him just becoming I'm just a captain now it's so deeply depressing, and I don't even know why.
Like, I think it's part of it is because Will Wheaton, right? Like, that has to be part of it. At least for me, it's because Will Wheaton. But also, like, Wesley Crusher, like, Riker being kind of like a dead-end sad sack because Deanna Troi died like 30 years ago is like one thing, and it's kind of a bummer. The fact that, like, Star Trek happened and then Wesley's just kind of like a bad dad captain, because he was like whether or not you like Wesley Crusher in the show was very firm that he is like the best and brightest of humanity as a child and was destined for great things. Those great things happened to be like yelling at Picard about like trying to transplant space natives, but before that he was supposed to be the best and brightest, and this book just like kind of shits on all that by making him like not just a Starfleet captain but kind of a shitty Starfleet captain.
I mean, like, we don't know that. I guess. Like, he totally could be on his own Star Trek show every week and having adventures, but seeing that from the outside, you're like, oh, right, this is just a guy who drives a big bus. Like,
but so Starfleet captains are, like, inherently, like, there's a big problem in that, like, they're always going to planets and they don't stay and they can't form connections very easily, and that's why, like, Kirk has, like, the womanizing reputation, but it's also why Picard is, like, he has some romantic entanglements but never settled down and start a family. And, like, that's an important part of his character because he knows that he can't be that person because he's a Starfleet captain first and foremost. And so he won't, like, try to go into that knowing he can't do it with both feet. And the idea that Wesley Crusher grew up to just be a dude who didn't make that conscientious choice that Picard did, like, really speaks ill of Wesley's personality in this book as a person. Like, he grew up with Picard's example and learned nothing is, like, super weird to me.
Like, that is true, but also from the other perspective, as someone who grew up in school and everyone's like, oh, you're so clever, you're going to be a lot one day, and you grow up and you're like, fuck off, thanks for telling me that, I'm not actually. It's
but to be fair, that's basically what happened in the way the show is writ, where he, like, quit Starfleet and then went off to space travel and saved all those natives. I guess I don't know if I feel like he didn't actually save them.
I don't remember the specifics. All I know is he just exited this mortal realm.
Yep.
But no, like, yes, the show does that because it's the right choice, because you can't actually have him just become a Star Trek captain and then the barest minimum of subversion is he's also shit. Like, that's such a bad... I don't like this book at all. We'll get to more reasons why later, but here's one of them.
So they go to Beta Z and they're all sad and they beam down and they head towards Loxana's house because Riker's like, if I delay long enough, maybe she'll be dead by the time I get there. Well, no, Riker's in a really dark place.
You do that, but they also get a little bit of, like, the book loves its fucking backwards exposition bullshit. Like, he lands on Beta Z, and the bulk of the book is prequel stuff in Beta Z. So you have to have, like, 10 pages of, that's a character who's going to show up later who you don't know yet.
Well, I was going to get to that. You stepped on my segues here,
I thought
Jackson.
Okay, sorry.
So they land on the planet. As they're walking to the Troy mansion, they run into an old flame of Riker's named Wendy Roper, and he's like, "Oh, I can't believe I saw you here." And she's like, "I looked you up. I knew you were coming." And she's been here forever, and they knew each other from before. And she's like, "I'm married now, and my dad died 10 years ago, and I've just been on this planet forever." And remember that because she'll be kind of a character that we might talk about. Probably not that much, to be honest. Anyway, they get to the Troy mansion, and Mr. Holm answers the door and leads them up to the bed where Loxana is lying on her deathbed. And as they approach the door, the breathing stops. And then Riker immediately starts beating himself up for delaying, hoping that she would die, because he delayed hoping she would die. But this Riker hates himself and everything, so whatever happens, he's going to be sad and angry at himself about it. And then he opens the door and he's like, "Oh, I have to at least look at her body. I can't be this much of a coward." And then with the last of her breath, she reaches up and grabs Riker by the throat and screams at him that it's his fault that Deanna died, and then she dies. Which, to be fair, totally a Loxana thing to do.
Yeah. That's what is like, that happens, but the way the book is written, the way this paragraph, like, makes it sound, is that she is dead, and then returns to life briefly to grab Riker's throat and scream unending for about 30 seconds, and then immediately fall down again.
It's great.
It's so much.
So the funeral happens. Crusher stayed around because Crusher just wants to help his sad dad friend. And Riker has been in Loxana's will. Riker has been designated the, like, executor of her estate, so he has to go through all of her shit and catalog it. And Crusher's like, "You don't have to do that. No one would expect that of you." And he's like, "No, I have to. This is her punishment. I have to do this penance for what I've done to her daughter." And so they're standing in the mausoleum where, like, her body is, and then they go into the other chamber and there's Deanna's body. And Riker is like, "Oh, she's so vibrant. She looks exactly like she did. I wish I could take her out, but it's been too long."
Wait, my dude. She is
Crusher
dead.
comes in and they're talking about their memories of Deanna, and then I would like to read this bit that I have here.
Okay.
So to set up, Riker, they're looking at the body, and Riker turns to Crusher and is like, "You had a crush on her, didn't you?" And Crusher's like, Is it that obvious?" And Riker's like, "Of course, you were 16. Like, come on. You wore a onesie. Everyone could see your boner from space." Crusher let out a slow breath as if a great weight had been lifted off him. She was the most exotic woman I'd ever seen, and you didn't have to pretend with her. No games, no posturing. She just accepted you as you were. All us guys had a thing for her, really. We'd sit around and then Crusher flushed slightly and cleared his throat. Before he could continue, Riker said, "I wonder what it would be like to..." "Yeah," admitted Crusher. Then, sounding slightly and amusingly defensive, considering his age and the years that had passed, he added, "We were just kids." Fucking Wesley and a bunch of other kids sitting around talking about how much they wanted to fuck Counselor Troy is the last thing I needed from anything Star Trek ever in the history of all of these things that are going to read. It's the worst. I'm so upset.
It's not good. It's also amazing because like she just accepted you as you were, and we were all horny. Like fuck off. Oh, and this comes like about a page after a passage where it goes into how like, oh, she is dead, but the only gift her death gave her was the fact that her body didn't have to get less hot.
So they're having this conversation, and then Crusher's like, "How did she die?" And Wesley's like, "Did your mom never tell you?" Or Riker's like, "Did your mom never tell you?" And he's like, "No, I was away at the academy, and she never really wanted to talk about it." And then it's like during the monsoon season in Beta Z, so it's like raining. Riker goes to the like door of the mausoleum and is standing in the torrential downpour, hitting his face. Let me just read the passage, actually. Yeah. I have it highlighted. Yeah. Riker shook his head. Then he walked toward the door and stepped just outside, allowing the rain to spatter on his face. The thunder cracked once more, and over its sound, Riker called out, "I have no answers for you, Wesley. None. But if you want to know what happened, I'll tell you. You're entitled to that. God knows we all are."
And then Brothers in Arms,
which is the end of the first segment.
God. This book's terrible, by the way. This book's fucking terrible and I hate it. And we haven't even got to the stuff I hate yet.
So we open on the middle of Star Trek, probably like season 4, I would guess. I don't know exactly. I think there's a specific time, but we don't really concern ourselves with star dates and years here. So whatever. So we're on the ship, and there's peace talks between the Cinderines and a bunch of other races. And they're like, there's like this, they're trying to discuss like whether or not the Cinderine are going to surrender unconditionally, or whether they're going to like get Federation support or whatever, because they're losing. Anyway, they're here on the ship, and Counselor Troy is going to help do this, even though she can't read the Cinderine easily because they're like snake people, and she needs time to break through their mental defenses. And it's intimated that, oh, she has some prior experience with the Cinderine, which will come up in the book. Anyway, Riker goes to talk to Troy and goes to her apartment, and she's busy having sex with one of the people in like, they're called the Lust. I don't know. They're just one of the other aliens in their delegation. His name is Don, D-A-N-N, because Dan is too normal for Star Trek. And Riker's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have intruded." And Deanna basically like points to the door and is like, "Get out, I'm busy." And so he goes to nurse his like wounded ego and pride at 10 forward. Where Guinan goes to him because he's a sad sack, and Guinan is like, "Oh, what? You know what? I'm going to read it because it's really bad, because the things it implies about the potential of things happening in Star Trek bothers me a lot." So Guinan basically asks what's wrong, and Riker's like, "Oh, I was an idiot with her." And Guinan knows who he's talking about because, you know, there's only one person he's going to be talking about. Anyway, this is Guinan speaking. "I see, and were your actions unforgivable? Did you hit her?" Riker looks shocked. "Of course not." "Rough her up a little?" "No." "Call her obscene names?" "Of course not, Guinan. I'd never do that, and she'd never tolerate it." "How about beating up one of her friends? Would she tolerate that?" "No, she wouldn't." "Well then," said Guinan, "how do you think she'd react to your beating up on yourself?"
And then she like put on some sunglasses and walked away.
She like moonwalked offset. So Guinan opening a question about Riker's well-being, asking if he beat up Deanna Troi, is the worst thing I've ever heard. And I just said there was a worse thing 5 minutes ago, but this is the worst thing. There's a new worst thing.
I think the Wesley thing's worse, but it's still pretty fucking bad.
It's really bad. Also, using that, like questioning whether or not he was like abusive towards Deanna as a segue to being like, well, why are you beating up on yourself? Is like the most,
that's the worst
I am
part of
Peter
this.
David, I do not understand how human psychology works, but let me write out a thing that sounds right, but is like a lizard person thing. And I don't mean a Cinderine, I mean a lizard person from the moon.
Yeah, so she's like giving this explanation, and it's like almost played as if I can't tell if it's intended that she's actually asking that, or if she's saying ridiculous things to like make Riker put.
She's saying ridiculous things, but it's still bad.
Yeah,
it's extra
like,
bad
it's
because
still
that's not
bad.
the things she would do.
And then it like transforms into this like lesson for Riker through the power of writing dialogue, and it's hell on Earth and space. I fucking hate it. And what's especially amazing about it is this. Like, you watch Second Chances or something, or any episode, and because TNG is basically a show about people who have irreconcilable problems, having to talk enough about them to come to a solution. And that's what? How would you watch enough TNG that you're, like, able to write a book about Star Trek and not understand that earnestly talking about your feelings and problems is the defining trait of the show and why it's good?
Yep. So anyway, that happens. Riker and Troy come to like this like understanding. They talk about their feelings. You almost think things are going to be fine after all the bullshit. And then like Riker's like, oh, I'm happy for you. You know, go off and Dan, I'm not going to be jealous. And then he's like lying in bed and he has this moment where he's like thinking about Deanna and thinking about this time where they almost hooked up a while back. And then he sits up and he's like, there's someone else in the room. And he turns on the lights and there's no one there. And he's like, that's strange. And then he goes back to sleep. And then he hears Deanna call Imzadi. And he rushes to her place. And then she's on the ground convulsing in her room. And Dan's sitting there. Like, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to call anybody. I don't know what's going on. And then he calls Crusher and races her to sickbay. But by the time Crusher gets to them both, she has died. And then it cuts to Loxana sitting up in bed screaming. And she did not stop screaming for 2 hours. She was never the same after that, which is the end of this segment.
Screamed for 2 straight hours. All Loxana does in the first 2 segments of the book is a bad thing happens, and then she screams.
She mourns and dies. That's all women can do in these books, mourn and die.
No, that's not true. There's a third thing, and it's control.
Oh, right, they can fuck. I forgot.
No, okay, yes, they can fuck, and they can act controlling towards other women.
Yep. There's that. Those are the things. So we cut back to Beta Z, Admiral Riker telling this while they sit around Deanna's coffin, I guess.
Yep.
I don't know. It's kind of a bad story to be telling in a mausoleum. But the rain stopped and they go back to the house. And Crusher's like, are you really going to look through all this stuff? And Riker's like, yeah, I need to for my own sake, for Loxana's sake, for Deanna's sake, blah, blah, blah. Crusher's like, well, okay, good job.
Bye.
Crusher out. I'm going home. And beams out.
And he is never mentioned in the book again. He's gone, by the way. He doesn't have like a plot
Riker,
like coming back later.
Yeah, Riker finds like the fucking holy rings of Beta Z in a closet. He's like, what are these doing here? That's strange. Anyway, he's in Deanna's room and he finds like the Star Trek equivalent of a shoebox. I'm sure it has like hollow sides where it looks ridiculous and silvery. And opens it up and inside is a bunch of things we don't recognize but are clearly going to show up in the rest of the book. Yeah. There's a headband. There's a rock with blood on it. There's a poem written on some paper, which is weird because honestly, outside of Picard's books, I don't think I've ever seen paper in Star Trek.
Pads.
Yeah, pads. P-A-D-D, pad.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's looking at these things. He's overcome with emotions. He breaks down crying. For the first time, he can show a human emotion. And then we cut to the beginning.
Yeah, yes, I think it's important to say that every single one of these segments has had like a title. So the first chapter, it says The End. And then when it cuts to Riker on the starbase, it's like the beginning of the end.
No, yeah, the end of the beginning is the Riker in Star Trek Cinderine Peace Talk stuff.
Yes.
And then the bit with Crusher leaving and Riker looking at that box is called Epilogue. And then the part that we're about to get to, which is young Riker, is the beginning.
I'm banning writers. I'm just no more writers. Sorry.
So the setup is Riker, Lieutenant William Riker, is on the Fortuna. He is leaving to become the first officer of the Hood, which is the ship, by the way, that Wesley is commanding in the future present tense, I guess, of this book. Anyway, he's going to be promoted, but the Hood is in for repairs because they were attacked by Cinderine raiders, and so he has to, like, cool his heels on, as they say, which is like a very militaristic term, but cool his heels on Beta Z for a couple months while it gets fixed. He's going to be like the attaché to the Federation embassy, and he doesn't like it because he doesn't want to be planet side. He doesn't want to be on Beta Z. That's a place with feelings, and he's a Starfleet officer. He's about action and getting shit done. Anyway, he arrives in Beta Z. He goes to the embassy, and we meet the actual only good character you know what? Wendy's all right too, but one of the only good characters in this book, Mark Roper, the Starfleet liaison on Beta Z. He is just like a middle-aged, like balding, like portly guy. He is just fucking working class politician. He is the best.
He's so good.
He comes in, like Riker comes in, and Mark Roper is like yelling at his secretary about like 6 scheduling conflicts, and like when Riker walks in the door, he's like, "Oh, do we have an appointment?" And Riker's like, "Was nobody expecting me?" He's like, "Oh, you're Will Riker, right, okay." And then he just calls him Captain as like a term of endearment because he's like, "Oh, you're gonna be Captain soon. You're clearly ambitious in a way I'm not. But could you go fill in for this wedding that I need to go to and I don't want to go to? Take my daughter Wendy." And Wendy comes in, and she is like flirty and young and vivacious, and Riker's like, va-va-voom, horny immediately. Let's go do this. Let's go to this wedding.
That's not, hang on, I have this, the exact
Okay, you
quote.
have this. Please present this.
Hang on. Yes. Okay. She walks in, and we are described to her with one of the worst sentences I've ever read, which isn't intended to be as bad as it is, but in 2017, it caused me to die. And that sentence is: "A young, cheery-eyed woman with straight black hair and a bit of the devil in her eye flounced into the office. Hello, Daddy."
It's not meant like that. I never read it like that.
It's not read like that. I'm saying,
poisoned by internet horny.
That's what I said, but I still had to read the sentence.
It never occurred to me because you need to log off. That's what the actual truth is.
I mean, I do need to log off. I'm not going to deny this.
Anyway, there's like a scene where they're like picking dresses or whatever, and like she asks her dad, "What dress should I wear?" And he's like, "What do I care? Like, what does it matter?" And Riker's like, "Oh, that's a weird reaction to have to your daughter. You want her to look nice for this wedding, right?" And anyway, they go to the wedding, and he's like, "Oh, she's hot. I'm glad we're going to this wedding. She looks great in this dress." And then they get there, and it's a Beta Z wedding, so right outside, everyone starts stripping off, and Riker is paralyzed by fear because he's not been confronted with actual humans just being naked ever before, even though he's like a total fuck machine Riker. And all the Betazoids are like, "Oh, we're very understanding. We're sorry Mark didn't tell you. Maybe he thought it was a joke. You don't have to be undressed. You can just go in. No one will think less of you."
And then Mark's clearly back in his office just like...
But also, Riker is like, "If I'm not naked, everyone will think less of me because I have to expose my virile manhood to everyone." And then he does strip, and then Wendy Roper is like, "Oh, you had nothing to be ashamed of," because yes, he exposes virile manhood to everybody.
I hate this segment. It's not as like, it's not the central plot of the book, and it's clearly like a comedy bit, but everything about this book's gender politics is obviously fucking awful. And this whole segment of the wedding is just extended jokes about like, "Oh, Riker was nervous because he just is scared. He's like terrified of humans and nakedness, even though he's, fucked every woman on every starship ever, because he can't actually be bad at being a man. He has to be the manliest man. So as soon as he does anything, it's revealed he is the manliest man. Huge dick, white Riker," which I don't want anyone's dick described in Star Trek. That's a rule. I never want that to happen.
The moment where like Riker is like whatever anxiety about this is burst is actually like a good moment, I feel like, where he's sitting there clearly super awkward in this room full of naked people, and then like the father of the bride, or like the father of, is it the father, no, the like mother of the groom walks in and looks at him like hairy ass 80s Riker in this room full of Betazoid men. It's like, why are humans so hairy? And he's like totally like he's clearly like not thinking and just says the first thing that pops in his head, and his answer is traction. And the old woman looks at him and then laughs, and it's just a moment of like diffusing this tense situation that is like really honest and good. And in the middle of all this bullshit, I cannot believe there's like a good moment here.
That's the bad Star Trek way though.
Yeah.
It's the most honest Star Trek thing, is to have this just insufferable, awful thing, which, you're like, "Oh, here's a decent character moment out of nowhere."
Yep. it is immediately thrown in the garbage as the wedding happens, and then Riker sees the maid of honor, who is Deanna Troi, and he sees her and he's instantly smitten. He's like, oh, she's hotter than everyone else, and she looks good naked, but it's not even about that. There's something special about her.
Oh, yeah, no,
she's
it's not,
great.
is it? It's not about that, is it, Will?
And then he's like looking at her while she's standing in the wedding party, and he's like, oh, look at that ass. It's real good. And then he's like, oh, look at her curves. Look at her smile. And he's like, wait, her smile? I was looking at her ass. How could this be? And that's because she's looking at him because he's on Beta Z.
It's a lot. And then, like, we're going to get into stuff where he's like, oh, now I have to decide if love at first sight is real. Because apparently he's never been horny before. Like, he just sees this woman and it doesn't even because throughout the book no interiority or agency is really given to Troi that much, so we literally just have the entire foundation of their relationship at this stage is he sees a naked person who is so much hotter than all the other naked people here, and it feels like a spiritual experience to him.
So I mean, the problem, I don't know. The problem is, like, the book, the show has made it very clear that, like, if there is such a thing as soulmates, Will Riker and Deanna Troi are it. Like, whether that means they're, like, in a relationship or not, they're totally, like, just tied together forever. That's the way their, like, emotional states and minds work. The book just assumes that you are willing to believe that without any setup, so the minute Riker goes nuts and, like, is like, oh, Deanna, there's something special about her, of course he is, because it has to be that way, but also the book doesn't give you any reason for that other than clearly he's thinking with his dick, and it's the worst.
Well, yeah.
It's not that the facts are wrong, but the context is terrible, which is basically my feeling about a lot of this book.
We'll get into it as it goes, but like, what it takes is the Star Trek, the thing, the fact of Star Trek, right? That Deanna Troi and Will Riker are meant to be together, or / aren't, but like they are a pair and will be forever, you know. So instead of building up to why, it just takes that as writ, and as soon as they come into contact with each other in the most dumb way possible, expects you to be rooting for that connection. So
yep.
The fact that I care about Star Trek means that I should care about this succeeding, means that I should relate to Will Riker in this situation. But if you step back even half an inch, you're like, this is no.
Yeah, so what happens is fucking 10 chapters, basically, of
nothing.
Will Riker. So, I'll just lay out the events and you can interrupt when something happens. Okay. But Will Riker's like, oh, who's that lady? And Mark Roper's like, oh, that's Deanna. She's a psychology student.
I am going to interrupt for Roper. He totally goes back to Roper, and Roper's like, yeah, they're naked, yeah. Oh, I got to have my fun somehow. Anyway, how's it go?
Yep. One of the because Roper's been on Beta Z forever, and it's a thing Wendy has that makes her very like, I'm just gonna come on to Riker because he's hot and I don't care, is Mark's like, oh, did you sleep with my daughter? And Riker's aghast, clutching his pearls, like, how could you ask that? He's like, I don't care what my daughter does, I just want to know because it makes things easier for everyone to know where we stand. I don't care if you sleep with my daughter, I don't care if Deanna Troi sleeps with my daughter, I'd be surprised, whatever. But like, because my daughter's hella straight because she sleeps with guys like you. But the like weird offhanded references to like just queer relationships exist in Star Trek is appreciated, especially in like '93, because the show doesn't touch it. There's like fucking no gay people in all of Star Trek.
Nope. And especially from like the perspective of like this kind of not giving a shit about the aspirations of Star Trek, just working class guy getting by, able to buy into progressive ideas just as a throwaway thing. Like, it doesn't build it. It's one of the weird moments in this book where it just has that happen and it doesn't actually feel forced.
Yep. So anyway, Riker goes to the university to run into Deanna, and Deanna's like, I'm not interested in you. You're Will Riker. And he's like, how did you know I was Will Riker? And she's like, I asked around. He's like, why'd you ask around? It's like, because you were boring holes into me in the wedding. And he's like, what if we go out? And she's like, I'm not interested. And he's very persistent, and it's like supposed to be a dumb fucking meet cute, but he just fucking nice guys himself forever. And then she finally relents and is like, I'll go on a date, but only if you pick me up from my house. And he's like, that's great. And she's like, great, you'll get along well with my mother. And so he goes and picks her up, and he meets Loxana, and Loxana is Loxana, but like more so because she's like super aggressive and protective of her daughter, because her daughter is gonna basically be Loxana when she grows up, because Deanna has no aspirations to go to Starfleet or anything anything yet, because this book makes that a thing that Riker instills in her as like an idea she may want to do, because of course it does. Anyway, they go on dates and they don't go well because Riker's just like, let's fuck, and Deanna's like, no, it's not about that. Like, even if I, like, he's like, don't you want to? I feel like you're giving off vibes that you want to. He's like, even if I wanted to, I'm not going to do that. That's not what people do. I'm an adult. Like, I need more of a connection. Like, just getting horny is not a good reason to fuck anybody. And Riker does not comprehend that. They did not teach that at the Academy.
Riker's like, actually, I think I find it is the best reason to fuck someone.
And that goes on for fucking ever. Even like, and like Riker's like dealing with, like, there's like a security force on the planet, and there's this guy called Sergeant Tang, and Sergeant Tang's like, don't get involved with the local girls, sir. They're all about the feelings. You're not gonna like it. You're a Starfleet man. Just like hang out with Wendy Roper. She's nice. She clearly is into you. Just say yes and be with that, and then go on to the hood when it's necessary, and don't do this. And he's like, thanks, sir. Thanks, Sergeant, but you're just a sergeant. I'm a lieutenant. I think I know what I'm doing.
And then Tang's like, yeah, all right, sure.
Yep. And so Troy's like, look, if we're going to make this work, or if we're going to even like talk about this, we need to like get you in a headspace so you can understand where I'm coming from. So let's go to the museum and like appreciate some art. And Riker is like incapable of appreciating art or music because all he's about is horny and Starfleet. That's all he cares about.
It's amazing. Like, the scene is like, he goes to look at a piece of art, and then Troy's like, so what did this make you feel? And he's like, well, I don't know, it makes me feel like I'm looking at a piece of art. Duh.
And she's like, no, what is it saying? And he's like, it's nothing, it's goopy art. And she's like, what do you not have paintings on Earth? And he's like, yeah, but they're usually about stuff. And Riker's like,
it doesn't count if you can't put it in the wiki.
Yeah, basically.
It's not canon. This painting's not canon. We should fuck.
And so Troy's like, okay, you clearly don't respond to anything but fucking brute shows of like dominance and force. So let's just do it this way. So she takes him up to a tree, and like they climb the tree, and she's like, okay, I want you to hang from the tree as long as possible. And so they both do this, and Riker's like, I'm stronger than you. I could do this forever because I'm a man and you are a woman. That's just how things are. And she's like, no, it's not about that, you idiot. It's about mind over matter, because it doesn't matter how strong you are. It's about how good your mind is. And my mind is fucking on point. And so she hangs there forever, and Riker tries to, but he's too busy thinking about fucking, and his arms go numb, and he falls off the tree. And then Deanna's like on the tree, and she just hangs there for like another 20 minutes as Riker stares up at her dumbly. And she gets up and she's like, oh, I'm very good at this. And she goes to walk off the tree, and she like slips and falls, and Riker catches her. And they have this moment. And then Deanna's like, please put me down. Riker's like, didn't you want me to catch you? And she's like, no, I slipped. There's a piece of bark. And Riker's like, no, I think you wanted it. I think you fell like a Freudian slip, literally, because you just wanted to be in my arms. And she's like, no, I think if you look around, there will be bark. And so she leaves in a huff, and Riker looks around for fucking half an hour and is like, there was no bark.
Which
she clearly wants
I'm cutting in here because I want to talk about this fucking stuff.
Because
so the scene you are describing is, we are progressing through this plot as at the pace of like how the plot exists in our minds, but the actual book, by far, this single plot, this back and forth, takes up more space than any of the other plots combined. Like, I think that's crucial to know, is the most of the book is this fucking back and forth. And so you have Riker, who is nothing but just like the most cliche, boring, base performance of masculinity. He has no other interest, no other ideas, no other like ways of relating to even a single thing, unless it's like, oh, I am doing what I was taught in Starfleet school, or I want to fuck it. That is it. There's only two rules. There's only two abilities to see the world. And so that's bad enough. But then Troy comes in, and they're like, oh, fine, another person's gonna bash against this ideology, and we're gonna have a Star Trek discussion. And it is that, except Troy's just Yoda, and she's like, oh, if you use your mind and you like do or do not, there is no try, you will be able to stand on the rock forever, on the tree forever. And it's just, I hate it. I hate it so much. Why is she Yoda? That's not that's not what the telepathy is.
I want to talk about this, but only after we're done with this Beta Z section.
Okay, so we're gonna
I have things to say. Yes. Okay. So anyway, so like after this whole thing, Troy is basically like Ghost Riker and is like off doing whatever, and Riker's like, okay, I take the hint. I'm gonna just kind of like read some philosophy or whatever and try to understand the Betazoid people. And so he's taking this he's like reading this text and doing these example exercises about how you're supposed to deal with people, and he's getting them all wrong because it's like the problem is like Jane, like Officer Jane has problems with her superior officer. She comes to you and is like, oh, he's treating me unfairly. I do all this work and I don't get the credit, blah, blah, blah. What are you supposed to do? And Riker is failing all these questions because he's like, oh, well, first you lay out a plan of action where you examine all your actions and you see if maybe you actually were doing the things that he said. And if not, maybe you should confront him about this stuff. And then he reads the solution and it's like, no, you're supposed to talk to Jane about a time this happened to you and support her decision, whatever it is. And he's like, that's bullshit. What is this garbage? And doesn't understand it. And then eventually there's something that happens where he recognizes that Deanna was actually looking up on him or something. I don't remember how this happens because it's been like 2 weeks since I read this. Mm-hmm. But he ends up deciding to go to the university to like take one last shot at Deanna, like talking to her. And he does that by doing the like thought projection thing because he's like, oh, she spoke to my mind during that tree when she fell off the tree and it was weird. If we have a connection, maybe if I can send a thought to her, she'll know that we're like the real deal soulmates and not just some bullshit horny thing. So he sits there and like projects a thought into her mind of just like, you've been avoiding me, which is A, the creepiest thing to do, and B, like using their connection as like soulmates to like be vindictive is like the shittiest boy thing to do.
It's worse. It's not you've been avoiding me, it's you're afraid of me.
Oh, great. If that's true, maybe leave her the fuck alone.
Well, no, because he's like, he sees it as like a hypocrisy of hers, as like she's been avoiding him, and she's like lecturing him about how he doesn't take care of her feelings. But actually, the truth is that she's avoiding her feelings, and her feelings are clearly gonna be resolved by this dick. Is like, and it like plays that, which is an awful logical construction of a character, as just true. That's just the truth of this universe. I hate it. Yep.
So she like confronts him and is like, okay, you're like being an asshole. And he's like, but you want me. I know you want me. And she's like, look, it's not about, like, she explains all that stuff about, it's not about that. I need a connection. Let's just like do this experimental technique, and if this doesn't work, if this doesn't break through to you like what we're actually about, then like fuck you forever, we're done. And he's like, okay, I think I can succeed at this one shot because I'm a Starfleet officer. Succeeding at my last chance is exactly what we're trained to do. Let's do this. So she takes him into like this secluded lake, and she's like, take off your clothes. And he's like, oh, we're just gonna fuck. And she's like, no, it's not about that. So they both take off their clothes and they lay together naked, and he's like, why are we doing this? She's like, we're gonna talk, and if you can talk to me like a human being while we're doing this, then maybe there's some worth in you. And so he's like very confused, and his boner is very hard for a while, and eventually he brings up this Betazoid philosophy thing, and this is the context of, the context of all of this is really awful. Like, whatever, all this stuff about their interaction so far has been trash. The minute that Riker like ignores his boner and like is like, okay, I want to talk to you about this psychology thing, I don't get it, and they have like this explanation where he's like runs through the problem I presented, and Deanna's like, so I bet you just laid out an action plan. And he's like, yeah, of course I did, why wouldn't I? She's like, the only thing you know how to do, the only thing you've been trained to do is lay out action plans. You don't know how to understand people. Like, the thing you need to do is empathize with her because she has this problem, and she wants you to understand her feelings, and she wants your support more than she wants you to just like tell her solutions to her problems. And Riker stops for a minute and like actually like chews on that for a second, and it's the one interaction that feels true to who both those characters are, and it's like the one moment the book is about something, and I like that a lot.
It suddenly crystallizes onto something more solid than just he's a boner and she's Yoda. Like,
yeah, it becomes like, so I want to talk about it once we're done on Beta Z. Okay. But one of the things I like about Beta Z is like, it is a planet like devoted to the understanding of emotional and mental states, because they have to, because otherwise they would have murdered each other like millennia ago, mm-hmm. because they can just read each other's minds. So they're very good at just like understanding themselves, understanding others, and being like empathic about that. Not like Deanna Troy's empathy, but like real empathy. I didn't mean that as the burn it was. You know what I mean, though.
Yes, no.
But because our society is the way that is, like everything the Betazoid is about is coded really feminine, and Riker's like, there's this problem, I need to solve an action, Starfleet has taught me how to do this, I know how to do this, we're just gonna lay out some options and choose the thing, is like very hard-coded masculine. And the moment that this book reveals through like this philosophy discussion that like it knows it's about this like the ultra feminine versus the ultra masculine and how they work together is A, the straightest thing and kind of garbage.
Yep.
But Also, I like the deconstruction of young Riker as like walking, where the book recognizes that he's just a walking boner and that needs to be taken down because you can't just have a walking boner be a person.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the one time Deanna is like the Deanna I recognize and like a lot. And it sucks that it happens in this one scene and then basically never again. But I do really like this one scene. One thing, before we move on to actually continuing the plot of this book, I read this book really young, and we should have prefaced this. I read this book when I was like 10 to 12 or whatever, and it was like one of my first Star Trek books, and it informed a lot about how I think about Star Trek. Like, there's a thing early on when him and Deanna have met, and Riker's like, I want to beat Jim Kirk's record to be the youngest captain in Starfleet, and she's like, what if you ever found someone you would just like to serve under and don't want to be a captain? And it's like, thinking emoji. But the idea that Riker wanted to beat Jim Kirk's record was a thing I just thought was one of his character traits from the show, and I think it only exists in this book. Like, we did some research, and this is the only time it's ever brought up. But because I read this book when I was young, a lot of what this book was like really ingrained in how I thought about the characters in the show. And rereading as an adult, it's really interesting, especially in the context of Second Chances. It's really interesting to see how often this book is like just not about the characters I recognize, but also how a lot of it informed the way I thought about those characters I recognize.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. It's a lot. Don't read books when you're young. I mean, do it. Kids should read. But I feel like you fuck yourself up.
I don't know. Like, you do, like, there's, I have dumb readings of caring about bullshit in the Halo games because I read their extended universe Halo books when I was 11. Like, you latch onto things when you're provided. You don't separate between the ideas of, oh, this is what this is and this is like the non-canon bit. It's all just important to you because you're a kid and you're reading about a thing that you care about.
Yep.
Which, I don't know. I feel like you should just own that. Like, if everyone has their own journey through coming to something, it's not a bad thing. Like, the book sucks, but that's incidental.
Anyway, they have this conversation. It's like an actual human conversation for once in this book. And then they get up and Riker's like, or Deanna is like, Riker's like, I'd like to see you again. And Deanna's like, why? And Riker's like, well, for lots of reasons. And she's like, well, we've made more progress than I thought then. I'll be in touch. And it's like actually positive and like a human interaction, whatever. Anyway, next day, Deanna's like at the museum with her friend who got married, and they're just there. And then suddenly Cinderine raiders show up and are like stealing art. But then like Starfleet surrounds the building with the security force led by Riker, and the Cinderines take hostages and they take Deanna. And he's like, oh, we have to protect Deanna. And there's this moment where like the Cinderine are getting on the ship that's on the roof of the museum, and Deanna's with them, and they're like, we can shoot down the ship, but we might hurt Deanna. And Riker's like, I make my choice. I'm going to fire on the ship, which is actually the right thing to do in this situation, I feel like. But it's like this, like, oh, he's going to choose his career over her for the first time and for every time going forward, blah, blah, blah. Until she dies, and then he realizes what an idiot he was. And the ship goes down in the jungle, and then everyone died but Deanna and this pilot, the like leader of these Cinderine raiders, and they're just in the jungle, and he's being aggressive towards her, and she's just being like totally like cool about it because she's Deanna Troi and she's actually like the coolest person about everything. And he's just getting mad at her for like not being scared of him, and she's like, look, you're gonna kill me or not gonna kill me, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to live my life the best way I know how. And if you kill me, then so be it. It's out of my control. It sucks, but what are you going to do? And it makes him really mad, and they get in a fight, and she tries to escape. And then Riker shows up and fights him, and the Cinderine jumps into quicksand and dies. And he's like, oh, at least I wasn't captured and sucked in by the quicksand.
It's a really strange moment because it's basically played as like the Cinderine triumphing over Riker's like bold plan to basically end the situation with no casualties alone. And he like bluffs, oh, you're surrounded, and he bluffs good enough that the Cinderine hesitates, giving him a moment to dive in, like knock the gun out, and they have a fight. And so in the middle of this fight, he like starts on one of the mud pits, which is this incredibly fast acting quicksand, and basically gives the Willem Dafoe Spider-Man about to be hit by the Green Goblin's glider look. And slides under there like, well, this is... Because Riker says something stupid, I don't remember the line, but it's like, hold on! And the guy goes, well, to what? I'm dead!
Yeah, to what? And then he sinks, and then Troy's like, he was happy dying in the quicksand. Anyway, they have to, like, the reason Riker's alone is because they had to spread out because the, like, most of Betazoid is jungle aside from a few cities, so there was a lot of ground to cover, and they have, like, several days to walk to get back to the camp where all the reconnaissance is happening. And they're walking, and then suddenly it's like Riker realized that Troy is like coming out of shock, or going into shock, coming out of this trauma of being almost killed in these jungle for several days. And she's like shaking and afraid, and he's like, oh, like let's stop and let's collect ourselves. And then Troy throws herself at Riker and is like, no, I was about to die, and let's do this. Let's just live for the moment. And Riker's like, I don't think that's a good idea. And she's like, shut up and fuck me. And he's like, okay, sure. And so they have dirty sex in the jungle, and then as they're walking back for 3 days, they continue to stop and have sex like dozens of times because she's just fucking both feet into everything. Yes. She can do nothing by half measure, and so they just fuck all the time, and they're all dirty and gross and in the jungle, and it doesn't matter. And she calls him Imzadi for the first time, and he's like, what does that mean? And she's like, it means beloved, but it's more complicated. It means the first. And Riker's like, oh, you mean I was your first? And she's like, yeah, you idiot. What was this whole thing about? And he's like, I don't think you didn't think you were my first. She's like, no, I know, you're a fucking like man slut, but you're my first emotionally. And he's like, oh, you have a good point.
I've never felt emotion before.
Because his book is dumb.
This
anyway.
book is amazing. Because also,
Riker...
not only does like Riker have to be, like Troy and Riker have to be met together, and it's all about emotional stuff, she actually has to 100% be like a true virgin who is conquered by his virileness. Like they can't avoid a single awful, masculine, feminine cliche at all. It's just literally that. I hate it.
Which is dumb because I feel like Deanna Troi, like most Star Trek characters, are mostly DTF all the time.
Yeah.
With the exception of probably Picard and Wesley, obviously.
Well,
and Geordi, because Geordi's awkward in all sorts of ways.
Wesley's Volcel. Oh no, that's staying in, isn't it? Shit. Carry on, go.
So anyway, they're walking back, and then Riker has some paper because he was like, we use this to leave notes on trees if we need to, because we're like only like 7 security guards covering an entire planet, and sometimes our operation's a little like, DIY. And he wrote a poem for her, and I have this poem. Would you like me to read the love poem William Riker wrote for Deanna Troi in the jungles of Beta Z?
Because I hate it, but I think you should. I don't ever want to hear it, but I'm gonna.
I hold you close to me, feel the breath of you and the wonder of you, and remember a time without you. But only as one would remember a bleak and distant nightmare. And you shudder against me in your sleep. Do you share the memory with me of dark times past? And you smile. Do you share the memory of times to come? The future holds such promise. And just as I cannot imagine how I survived the past without you, I cannot imagine a future without you.
So that's a really bad poem, first of all. Like, ignoring the content, that's just like, it's got no sense of flow, no real like through line. Do
you think they teach poetry in Starfleet, Jackson?
Yes.
I don't think they do.
I bet they do. Of course they do. Of course they do. Everyone hates it. There's always one person who really likes it.
No, you know what? So the actual thing is, I bet everyone likes it because fucking the Enterprise is full of nerds. Like, there's a fucking Shakespearean company on the ship.
There is that. Yeah, there's 100% has to be like a mandatory Starfleet art track.
So the implication to me then is that everybody loves poetry and literature and plays and shit, except for Will Riker, who doesn't understand it because he can't fuck it or command it.
Because in this book, Starfleet is very much a military organization.
Yeah.
Oh my god. This poem is so bad. Like, it's embarrassing, but just hearing it read out is like, oh no. Oh no.
Anyway, they get back to the camp, and everyone's very chill about them clearly being in love because they're Starfleet officers and they're very good at their jobs. And Deanna's like, come see my mother tonight. We will sort all this out. We can be together. It'll be great. And then Riker shows up at the house, like cleaned up, and Loxana answers the door and is like, no, you can't see my daughter. Everything's fucked up. You weren't supposed to do this. She's listening to me now. She's not going to like be with you. You took advantage of the situation, which is true. And Riker's like, no, she wanted it, which is not a good thing to say to the mother of the person you fucked. And it's all bad, and Deanna appears sad in the background. He's like, Deanna, what are you doing? And she's like, I'm sorry, Will, I have to listen to my mother. It's just the way of things. You don't understand. You're human. Go off and command a starship. Anyway, Riker goes off dejected and like gets a bunch of whiskey and gets fucking stinking ass drunk. And Wendy Roper shows up and she's like, I've heard that things went really badly with you, Riker. And Riker's like, you're nice. You like to fuck. Do you want to fuck? And she's like, yes, I love it. He's like, what do you think about art? And she's like, I think it's boring. And he's like, good, come to bed. And so that happens. And then Deanna has this huge fight with her mother where she's like, I'm going to do whatever I want. You are not in control of my life. I'll go join Starfleet and marry Will Riker, be the ship's cook if I want to. I don't care. I'll shave my head and dance on like an asteroid. You can't stop me. And she's like, if you leave out that door, never come back. And they have this big fight. And then she goes to meet Will and be like, I left my mother and we can be together and we can get married. And she walks in on him and Wendy just fucking like in bed, passed out. Riker's super drunk. And she's like yelling at him and he's like, please be quiet. And she's like, are you embarrassed someone will hear? And Riker's like, no, I have a hangover. Please be quiet. And she's like, I'm sorry, I will not inconvenience you any further. And she marches off and Wendy's very confused because Wendy didn't know any of this. Wendy was just like a nice girl who wanted to bounce in the bed with like the nice looking guy. Like, I feel like Wendy is poorly used by Riker in all this.
Well, yeah, because like Wendy spends the whole book like, hey, was Riker around? I'm bored. I want to fuck him. And finally he's around, but in this like post weird breakup situation. And he's like, oh, I'm so sad. Oh, do you hate art? Good. Let's fuck. You
know,
and
so anyway, Deanna is sad and goes back to her mom, and her mom's there, and she's like, look, it happens. I did this exact same thing to my mother. I remember doing this. I didn't talk about it because I forgot about it until this point where it was relevant. But I once did this exact thing. And she's like, you know, you can go off to Starfleet if you want. Please don't become a dancing girl. You'll catch your death of cold, but you can do whatever you want. I'm going to support you 100%. And she's like, you know, I still want to like do the best I can. I want to be your daughter. I want to marry Wyatt someday. We saw how well that went. And she's like, oh, don't think about that now. It could go as bad as my betrothal. And she's like, what happened to yours? And it's like, oh, he left me for someone else. And she's like, oh, who was she? And she was like, no, it was another man. And my mother was mortified, but it was fine. We were best friends after that. And then I met your father and it was great, blah, blah, blah. Anyway,
this 180
they have this makeup.
This 180 of Laxmana's character in this book is crazy. Because she is so much more hyperbearing than she ever is in the show. Just like, you will do exactly as I say. I am the mean mother character, and that is who I am. And then she walks into the scene, and instantly she's like, oh no, I'm understanding. And actually, I was exactly like you as a child, and here's about 10 instances of why.
Like everything in this book, it represents a very dim understanding about how women are people.
Yes.
Because the book is written by Peter David in 93 or 4, and he is the doodliest dude, does not understand anything. Like, this is an entire book of romance written from the perspective of the guy who just wants to fuck, and it's all in the context of, oh, she meant a lot to me and I didn't realize it until she was fucking dead.
And then, like, the actual fulcrum point of how it really went down wasn't that at all. It was, I was fucking someone else and she walked in. Like, that's actually how it implies so much more about their relationship for like how it describes it, and then the actual events are the most boring, mundane bullshit.
Anyway, there's this moment where, like, he's talking to Roper the next day, and Roper's like, hey, the Hood's done ahead of schedule. You're actually shipping out in, like, the next day and not 3 weeks from now. And he's like, oh shit, I need to at least try to talk to Deanna one last time. And they meet in the museum, and Deanna's like, goodbye, Riker. And Riker's like, maybe someday we'll, sort this out. I don't know. And they have this conversation where she's like, look, someday you're going to like actually understand that people are like, women are people, and you're going to get in a relationship, and maybe you'll cool down a little. And until then, I want nothing to do with you. And he's like, well, maybe someday you won't be a stick in the mud, and you'll like enjoy fucking, and maybe you'll get off this planet and get out from under your mother's thumb. And she's like, we fucked in the jungle for 5 days. Do you think I not enjoy fucking? That's not in the book, but it might as well be. Anyway, they have this like weird not goodbye where she's like talks to him, and they look at this painting together, and he sees the galaxies in it, and finally for the first time he is moved by art. And then he looks next to him, and she's gone because she didn't want to actually say goodbye. And then it cuts to them meeting in Encounter at Farpoint, where she steps off the turbolift, and he's totally taken aback because here she is, she's in Starfleet, and they hadn't talked in forever, even though that goes against everything that's in Second Chances. But look, Second Chances wasn't written yet. And there's that moment where she speaks to him in her mind and calls him Imzadi, and then they're like, what do we do? Did we pick up? Did we not pick up where we left off? And they decide not to, because time passed and they were different people, and they love each other, but maybe not in that way. And years had the way of passing like they do when you're not paying attention. They took each other for granted. And then the Cinderine showed up. And what happened? Well, Counselor Troy is sleeping with Dan, and Riker doesn't know how to feel about it. And he wakes up one night, and he's like, there feels like there's someone in my room. Lights. And when he goes to say lights, a hand covers his mouth and turns off the lights. And he looks, and it is his old self. It is Admiral William T. Riker.
Dun 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 dun!
So,
Oh my god.
this next section is called The Middle, because this book is dumb.
This book isn't over, by the way. There's still a whole act. Like, that stuff, the stuff on Beta Z could have just been the book. They didn't need this time bullshit, but it's there, and it's not over there. Yeah, it's only just beginning. Oh god.
So, Riker on Beta Z looking through Deanna's effects, like, makes sure all that stuff is done, donates all to the museum, whatever. The Enterprise shows up, and Data is here. Data's going to take him back to Starbase 86. Data's talking about the adventures he had on Forever World, and he's like, would you like to know, right? Would it make you feel better, Commander Riker, to know that Deanna is alive somewhere? And Riker's like, what, do you mean like in our hearts? That's stupid, Data. And Data's like, no, in another timeline.
It's so good. That's unironically my favorite line in the whole book.
And so Data explains that looking at the Forever, like the Guardian of Forever, is like revealed to them there's like alternate timelines and stuff because the universe is a complicated place. And in one of them, Deanna probably survived and everything was fine and blah, blah, blah. And would have realized that the whole thing is that the Sindarine were lying at the peace conference, and Deanna would have found it out by looking at, because apparently the Guardian of Forever can show alternate timelines, which I don't think is how the Guardian of Forever works, but whatever.
No.
Least of our concerns in this book. Anyway, Deanna found out they were lying in that moment in the like present tense of this book and stopped it. And then the Sindarine weren't the threat they are in this future present tense of this book, and blah, blah, blah. And then Riker's like, I wonder, what if, and then he thinks about it, and then he's like, what if, like, he orders everyone to do an autopsy on Deanna's body. And so they do, and they find traces of a weird poison that was only invented like 5 years ago. And Data's like, it could be anything, sure. She could have ingested something. And Riker's like, no, she was poisoned by someone from the past.
Someone from the future.
Riker's like, from the future. And Data's like, no, that can't be possible. What are you talking about? Like, the Guardian is sealed. Nothing can happen. And Riker's like, yeah, I guess you're right. And then he's super dejected. And Data's like, oh, he's depressed. And he tells, like, Riker's lieutenant on the Starbase to look after him, make sure he's not, like, a danger to himself and others.
I want to do the cut. I
half-cocked.
want to do the cut and thing and very quickly talk about the scene with Data and Riker.
Yeah, no, go ahead, because you talk as much as you
so,
want.
it's a bigger scene than that. Like, that's all that happens plot. But they argue so much. He's like, we have to go back. We have to turn the ship around. We have to go back. And Data's like, we can't go back. We can't change it. Even if what you're saying is true, this timeline has already happened. Or who's not to say that, like, by changing it again, we would make it worse? Like, we have to... The fact that this poison exists in her from the future is not enough. It could be a coincidence. It could be this other thing. There's no way to know how any of this went down. We have to, for our own sakes, let it down. And Riker's just like, no, we have to go back. We have to do this for Troy. And basically what it boils down to is they're arguing for 3 pages about what genre of time travel story they're in. And it's ridiculous. Like, it's one of those kind of arguments that you only get in a series where you have had enough bullshit stories involving ridiculous sci-fi premises that you have to argue what mechanics you are actually dealing with each other. It's so...
The temporal prime directive.
You cannot. It's Starfleet's most strict rule.
Anyway, Riker loses that argument and goes back to the Starbase, and he's really dejected. And like, Data even sends like a Betazoid who's on his ship to talk to Riker to get him, like, to see if maybe he's secretly like harboring plans to go to the Guardian Forever, and he's clearly not. Anyway, they drop him off at Starbase, and then very helpfully, like a week later, I don't know how long later. It doesn't really say. I don't think. It just says a couple days. He's like really resigned, and then he has the realization that maybe he could go to the Guardian Forever and fuck everything up, which is what Data had assumed he would do, but now he just had it late enough to be useful to him, and commands another ship to take him to the Guardian Forever. And then the like lieutenant that Data was like, please watch him, he might run off half-cocked. He's like, contacts Data and is like, Admiral Riker's run off half-cocked, what do I do? And Data's like, don't worry, I'll take care of it. And so he goes to the Forever planet, and the other ship is there, and they've been lied to about fake orders from Starfleet, blah, blah, blah. Data goes to Forever World, and Riker has like convinced Mary Mac to let him into the Guardian. and is like, Data, I have to do this. And Data's like, I will destroy the Guardian and let you interfere with the time frame. And the Enterprise fires on the giant shield, but the giant shield cannot collapse in time. And so Riker jumps through into the present past thing.
Oh, he sure does. That whole scene is like Data's commanding the Enterprise and going up to this other ship and like, we will fire on you. We will fucking destroy you. You have been lied to. And like, I don't know. The Data in this book is crazy and only about to get crazier.
So Admiral Riker shows up and it cuts back to when, or he wanted to come in like days before Deanna would like, was like scheduled to die, but because the Guardian is fast and everyone was yelling at him and everything was crazy, he comes in like 30 minutes before and he's like, oh, I need to do something really fast. What if Data came through? Data would be like, no, I was here, and try to track me down and stop me. So I have to find someone in the present time I can talk to and get them to stop Deanna from dying because he has an antidote for the poison. And he's like, oh, I'll go to Commander Riker. Commander Riker will listen. So he goes to Riker's bed, and that's when we cut back to Riker saying lights, and then he gets covered, blah, blah, blah. Admiral Riker slips him the antidote, reads him the poem to remind him of who he was. And Commander Riker is so upset, he charges to Deanna's room and commands her. He's like, hey, take this. And she's like, what? And he's like, if you ever love me or trust me, take this. And she takes the antidote as the guy she's sleeping with turns into a changeling, or not a changeling, but like the furry shapeshifter that's on that episode of Next Gen. Not a changeling. That's very... Yes, that's a different thing. But it's like Lieutenant, or it's Data's like lieutenant on the Enterprise is like one of those shapeshifters, and it's like, oh, Enterprise agents are here, they're after me. And they stop him with a fight, blah, blah, blah. And then you have Deanna and Commander Riker and Picard dealing with a bitter, old, upset Admiral Riker, who instantly like is ridiculously in love with Deanna once he sees her, kind of like Tom Riker, but like 1,000 times more powerful because he watched her die like 30 years ago and has been sad about it ever since.
And has now revisited that exact moment and saved her.
Yep.
So this book reaches this climax where I think this bit's okay, like it's obviously gross, but the actual him going back in time and having to stop the poison, it's well done, as ridiculous as it is. And so he stopped the poison, and I'm like, oh, that's it. The book is climaxed. We are done. We're not done. Because it turns out...
That's everyone else, too. They're like, oh, we saved Deanna. Timeline should snap back, and he should go back to his time. And no, he's still here. And so Riker's like, or Admiral Riker's like, I'm not done. Something could be happening. I can't tell you, Deanna, what you have to do, because I don't want to interfere with the timeline more than I already did. Like, I can't tell anybody like anything because I can't tell you. If I use the past tense, you'll know that you died in my future, and I don't want you to change the way you act. Like, it's really timeline wankery, even though he's already fucked up the timeline.
He's already fucked up the timeline. They've already like talked to him, and basically it is used in order to like have him not just explain, okay, here's what's going to happen, and here's exactly what you need to do to stop it. Even though that's like a thing. The Star Trek time travel shows have totally done that before. It's fine. And all the drama comes from the fact that he won't say the exact phrase he needs to say to fix the problem. So anyway, what we have is so Data's plan is like, okay, Troy needs to die because she can't tell them about the Sindarine because that has to go down how it went down. So to kill Troy, I need to succeed in that, but I also need no one to know I was here because I don't want to know that anyone has fucked with the future and fucked with the timeline. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to assassinate her, but I'm going to pretend to be Lore. So
also, he's going to deactivate Data because like he has to get Data out of the way.
He has to get Data out of the way, and so you have ostensibly the same character who has just got older, and the believable threat at the end of this book is that Data would just become the fucking Terminator and assassinate Troy.
And so Admiral Riker decides that's clearly what would have happened, and because that's how logic works, and goes to Data's room to find Data and finds his body without his head. And so he searches the room and finds the head and is like, we have no time, we have to stop it because Data's going to kill Troy right now. And so he tells Data's head that it's actually Lore from the future.
Yeah,
because he's like, if I tell Data that future Data is here to kill Troy, maybe present Data will agree with future Data, and then they'll both try to kill her, and we can't have that. So I have to tell him that it's Lore from another universe.
Oh, no.
And he tells that to Data, and Data immediately buys it because Data's a gullible child. Also, it's Star Trek. Of course Lore would do this.
Yeah, at no point does anyone question why Law would show up randomly in a storyline that doesn't involve him to kill someone. Multiple characters are like, yes, this is a believable thing. It's fine. Let's go.
Look, Laura's a giant asshole. I believe Laura would do that.
So
He didn't, but I believe he could.
then you have the actual best image from the entire book, which is Admiral Riker, grizzled, old, and sad, running down the corridors of the Enterprise D, holding Data's head to go stop Terminator Data from the future.
And then Data's body running alongside them because the head needs to be facing forward so Data can see where his body's going.
He's leading the body with him. Oh. Oh. Anyway, we're basically there now.
Yeah, so they run in as Data is like he's like gone to the conference and like talked to Troy and is like, oh, Admiral Riker had a heart attack. He's about to die. He's asking for you. She's like, I can't read him. And it's like, oh, there's so much turmoil. There's 2 Rikers. Maybe your thing doesn't work. Because her thing doesn't work half the time anyway. It doesn't matter. It's a pretty logical excuse to me. Anyway, she follows him and he's about to kill her. And then they barrel down the corridor and it's a Data fight. And Riker's there and everyone's there. And then Deanna has a breakthrough and can read the Sindarine. And in that moment where everything is bad, she realizes that the Sindarine are lying and duplicitous and has thus set the universe back into the timeline that they saw in The Guardian as like the alternate universe that Admiral Riker was trying to make, which means everything is going to snap back to the way it was.
It's ridiculous. Because not only is all the stuff with Data and Data ridiculous, which, yes, it is. It's too much. We also have the fact that apparently the way she expresses the duplicitous negotiations is to stand up in just the middle of the room and go, liars! Just like point at them and like, j'accuse!
To be fair, it's in the middle of 2 androids trying to kill each other and old Riker barreling down the corridor being like, we have to stop Lore.
We can't mess up the timeline. We have to stop Law. Keep running. This is one of the most beloved Star Trek books.
So we're in the final section, the beginning of the end, as everyone gets tossed out of the Guardian Forever. Data, the shapeshifter that was on his crew, Riker, and a weird character nobody knows, and that is it was mentioned earlier, and we didn't talk about it because whatever, we're here to tell you things, but not as well as we might. Mary Mac recognizes it's Marlock, one of their scientists who went missing several weeks before, and apparently he drugged Mary Mac and got her to deactivate the portal and use the portal to go into the past and change that moment to kill Deanna Troi so the Sindarine could take over the galaxy or whatever for the glory of the Sindarine. And they have stopped him. And Data's like, wait, we fixed the timeline? Admiral Riker was right? And Admiral Riker's like, yeah, of course I was right. And Data's like, why did we not know this? Why didn't the Guardian say something? And the Guardian Forever is like, you did not ask.
Fuck you. Fuck you, Peter. Fuck off. So, fuck off. One, the idea that there's a right timeline in a universe with just multiple like, that's not... There's no
the intention, like the premise of City on the Edge of Forever to me was that the Guardian could tell them that the timeline was fucked up because it was fucked up because there's only one correct timeline. But if the Guardian can show multiple timelines, there's no such thing as the correct time.
Exactly. Well, no, because it's not even like the logics of it is whatever, but the idea, the morality of it changes based on what timeline you're in. Like Riker's actions become either indefensible or the correct path based on whether or not the timeline he's in is like right or wrong in a bigger sense, which isn't how anything works. But then he's like, oh yeah, we're in the eye of the storm, so we'll be the only ones who remember.
But they'll only remember as long as they're near the Guardian. Once they leave, their brains will probably snap back to the universe the way it was.
And as he leaves, he's like, oh, did me and Troy ever get together in this universe? There's no way to know, did we? And then he like the final lines of the book is he can swear he hears it in his mind, Imzadi. Dun, dun,
so
dun.
That does happen, and it's like the big emotional moment where like, oh, she's alive and waiting for him. But before that, as they're like dusting themselves off and like, well, that was a hell of an adventure, Data's like, well, that was weird. It's like that one time Kirk was on here at the Guardian of Forever. Should we say the line, sir? And then Riker's like, yes, we should say the line. Let's get the hell out of here. Like, they basically, in-universe, know that that's the Star Trek line, and so they say the Star Trek line before they beam up.
Because the book, like, begins with "Let's get the hell out of here," and Data's watching that scene happen, and then he's like,
Yep.
"Oh, I guess we better do the scene then, guys." And also, there's like an additional amazing bit in this end bit where Riker goes, "I think you knew you were wrong, and that's why you didn't kill her as quickly as you could have killed her."
Which is not how Data works at all.
Well, he's got he's programmed. He can't betray the Federation. It's in his programming.
Yep.
I think he speaks for everyone when he says, "To hell with our orders."
That's the end of the book. We finished the book. We're done. We're free. Thank God.
Oh, this was a long episode. This was a lot.
This book deserved a lot.
Oh boy.
Not because it is good, because it is the opposite of that, and because it is bad.
Oh, I read it all in mostly one night as well. Like I read about 30% of it, and then I read the rest just in one night. Mostly out of necessity because I had to get it done. And I decided I'm going to, play an MMO for a week, which don't do that. But then I read it all in one night and it just made so much more, like, I can't tell if it would have been more painful to have it, like, hanging over me or not. But anyway, I hated it. I hated it so much. There were some hilarious bad things that are, like, enjoyable to joke about. Like Dad Wesley and Riker running through the hallway with Data's head, with Data's body. The funniest image, but no, it's terrible.
That's it. That's the book. Please come back next month for the next book. We are going back to DS9 relaunch it. It's got to be better.
It's good. All the DS9 books are better than this. Every single one.
So that's it for Imzadi. We will be back someday with Imzadi 2 Triangle.
Even though it's more like the square.
Is that supposed to be a question? Because if you were asking me if I liked what you were playing, then the answer is yes. This is a much better way of communicating for you. It's far less confusing than the way you normally speak.
I knew I could count on my Imzadi, the ship's counselor, to boost my self-image.
I'm glad to be of service.
You can ask us questions if you have questions. You can send them to podcast@abnormalmapping.com. Send us, thoughts about Star Trek. It could be about specific episodes. It could be about your favorite things. It doesn't matter. We'll talk about it. We have one question, and it is on Twitter. It is from our friend Dia. The question is, which is your favorite of Riker's girlfriends and why? Jackson, do you have an answer?
No, because I've not watched the show enough. Like, I know he has a bunch, but I don't remember, like, his... I don't remember many of his love interests. I remember, like, the genderless one. I remember that being fucking terrible.
It's bad. That part's bad. That one's bad. Don't pick that. Anyone who picks that one is wrong and bad.
There's no, I know. But, like, that's one of the only ones that sticks in my mind. I don't remember Riker ever being like, oh, yeah, that one's good for Riker. So I want
my
be
favorite one...
told.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I want you to tell me.
Okay, so the only good one that isn't Deanna Troi, which arguably doesn't even count because they're not together in any of the show, is because the problem with Riker is that he starts off as like the Kirk stand-in, and then the show's not about any of that stuff, so he doesn't get to like womanize it all. And the ones where he does is embarrassing because it's just an alien that is never going to show up again. But the one time that's not true is in season 5. Riker is, among probably all the crew, the one that is most like antagonistic towards Ro Laren, because she's like the person who questions a bunch of authority. But then there's an episode where everyone's memories are erased, and they're like trying to piece together who they are on the ship. And
that episode's so
Riker
good.
and Ro Laren mistake the part where they like constantly are antagonistic towards each other for attraction for each other, and spend like 3 days just in love, shacked up, like fucking.
Oh, that's so good. That's the best. I'm with you. I forgot about that. That episode's amazing.
Yep.
Worf's like, I'm clearly the captain. I've got to be the captain.
I have this sash.
Oh, what if I just stop everything and watch TNG?
It's a really good episode. It's called Conundrum.
Yeah,
it's in
good.
season 5. So
Yeah.
And so the like brief, and then once everyone gets their memories back, and Riker and Ro Laren don't pick up that romance, but they do have this moment where they're like, wow, that was crazy. I guess we do kind of like each other a bit, and then they're nicer towards each other. But I really do like that moment where they are together. I think they're a cute pair.
Yeah, that's good. That's good stuff. Thank you for the question.
Yep. And that's it. Like we said, next month we're doing Balance of Terror. We're doing Mirror Mirror from TOS. We're reading Twilight, the Deep Space Nine book. Come back next month for that. Jackson, please plug our other stuff.
We do a video game podcast called Abnormal Mapping. You can find it at abnormalmapping.com, along with our other shows, The Amory Score and Goof Zone. Amory Score is me and Molly Reinbeck yelling about the story of Coheed and Cambria. It's profoundly stupid. You'll have a good time. Goof Zone is me and Destiny talking about mental health, which is also stupid, but much more of an uplifting time. It won't make you feel bad about the world.
Yep. And then there's just video games, I guess.
Yeah, you can talk about video games.
As always, you can find us at patreon.com/abnormalmapping. I'm on Twitter at em_being. You're on Twitter at headfallsoff. That's it. We're done. Please, I've been talking too long. My voice hurts.
I need to stop thinking about this book. Goodbye.